And welcome back to the SMITE Summer Masters. Our third place game is done, and we're just about ready to jump into our grand finals. One final best of 5 to see which team is going to come out on top to be your number one in phase number 1. But if you were looking at our Twitter a little bit earlier today, we put out a little tease that we have a special announcement ready for you guys. So we're going to go ahead and throw it to that video to announce our special announcement.
An absolutely incredible weekend of SMITE.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in, for making this possible, for celebrating SMITE with us. You can be here in cosplay as well.
Oh, he's not like he's nowhere! He can get it! Oh my God! Untouched! Unscathed! Bow down to your king! The Camelot King! Champion of the world!
That's right. The SMITE World Championships is back once more for Season 10. We'll be heading back over to Texas in Arlington at the Esports Arena once more, as you saw, January 12th through the 14th. We're very excited to announce that we have SMITE World Championships live in person once more available for all of you. So make sure that you keep your eyes on all of our social media as we get the ticket information out for you just very soon. Also going to throw in there that there are some early bird specials. So whenever those tickets go through and we get that announcement for you guys and the dates that they go on sale, make sure that you are tuning in and make sure you get those early bird specials before you don't have the opportunity to do so. Last year, the tickets sold out within 72 hours. Now, is it going to sell at that same speed this time? Maybe. Might have a little bit longer, but make sure you're keeping your eyes out on socials when we get those dates available to you guys, January 12th through 14th. Very excited once more to bring the SMITE Championships live in person and bring it one more time to the Arlington Esports Arena. But let's get ready to jump into our grand final, though, because before we can even get to Worlds, we got to get through our first phase, and we got to obviously jump through second phase and get all of that good stuff going. But I think the most important thing right now on the mind of everybody is, can this Oni Warriors team keep the streak going? Can they go a perfect 16-0 sets from the inception of this team, from the very beginning of Phase 1 all the way through to the Masters Grand Finals now, as they have to face off against the Styx Ferrymen? And it's one final best of 5 standing between them and Perfection Mifflin.
Yeah, I was a fly on the wall in the lobby just a moment ago, J-Mac. I was listening to the conversation. The Hounds obviously riding high off of their big victory. The Jade Dragons also had some words to share. But one bit of information that I want to share with everybody at home is that the Hounds thought they were the only team in the league that could potentially even stand up against the Oni Warriors. Jade Dragons laughed at them, but Nika said, and this is the information here, he doesn't think anybody can beat the Oni Warriors right now. Scary stuff, right? I mean, it's a historic run from this team, but if anyone's going to do it, it's Land Time, Paul, and the boys, right? The Styx Ferrymen and every iteration of this team in the past has always had just a little bit more come land time, come event time, when stakes are high, when money's on the line, they play a little bit different. And it's true once more. They find their way into the finals against all expectations.
It is tournament time once more, and a grand finals opportunity once more for another player like Paul, like Aurora. And speaking of Aurora, he's standing by for our pregame interview.
That's right, I've got Aurora standing here. We actually didn't talk to you guys yesterday after the win, so it's really convenient we're talking to you now, because I want to ask, especially after last night, like, what was the mentality for the team, like getting the win, making it to finals, but also having such a long set?
We were just happy to pull out the win. The Hounds played really well, and I feel like we did a lot of good things too. And it was just a long, drawn-out, hard-fought set between both teams, and we got the win.
And you know what? Sometimes this is how it shakes out. 50-minuters in that one as well. You're coming into today, though, and you're up against the Warriors. And this has been a team, some people have figured out a game at a time, but never a set. So how do you approach a team like the Warriors?
I'm just excited to play against them. We only got to play against them once during the regular split, so it'll be fun. So I don't like just approaching them. We're just gonna do what we do and do it as best as we can.
Especially because you've got 5 games, right? I'm already expecting that. After yesterday, I know we're going the distance. I'm gonna ask both of you this, but if you win today, how are you gonna celebrate?
I don't know. I'm definitely gonna go home.
You haven't thought that far. You're just like, I'm gonna go play Smite, and we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm probably just gonna go back home for a little bit. Just chill, yeah.
Yeah, just chill. You know what? It's not a bad night, man, especially after last night, right? Some late night Smite. A lot of fun sets and fun games so far from the Ferrymen. I'm expecting a lot, so good luck in your games, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. We'll go back to the desk.
High hopes here for the Ferrymen to try and find a win against the Oni Warriors. And as mentioned by Aurora, it's only the second time now that they've gotten a chance to play against the Oni Warriors. Oni Warriors obviously out of their normal division during the regular phase, so only one regular season matchup against them. And then because the Oni Warriors had won out and got their first seed in the division, got to skip through the playoffs at that portion through, and now have made their way all the way up until this point of the bracket with their wins earlier on during the quarters and then the semifinals. So now the Styx Ferrymen will have their second opportunity to try and face off the Oni Warriors. And what better time than for them to try and get that square off is into the moment where the Oni Warriors are seemingly just on top of the world right now. 15-0. Only teams have been able to take single games away from this Oni Warriors squad. And we've always been wondering, what's that driving force to this team? Who's the one being that shot caller? It seems that just about everybody is there. But everybody's got to be able to look out for each other. And who better to look out for your team than their support? We have awesome Jake standing by for the pregame interview for the Warriors.
That's right. I got Jake here, and I got to ask Net yesterday, but I'm going to ask you, especially now that it's day of. How are you and the boys feeling making it to finals, making it this far without dropping a set?
This has been a crazy run. Historic. Feels great, honestly. But yeah, we're just looking to we've come all this way, and now we just need to put the bow tie on, and finish it off strong.
And that's kind of the big question I have. Like, how important to y'all is it to win this event?
Probably the most important thing on all our minds ever maybe. Yeah, we all really want it, and we're gonna get it.
That's what we're expecting. Warriors fans at home may be expecting as well. The Ferrymen. Yesterday, I'm assuming you guys were watching. Long games, a lot of footage to watch. What kind of prep are you able to do from yesterday, especially with their set ending so late going into today?
Towards this week, we've been scrimming them the most out of any team. So we're very familiar with their game, and yeah.
The glory of
really
being
good.
on opposite sides of the bracket, right?
Yep.
Well, now you're going to be going up against them. I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Aurora. If you guys win today, how do you plan to celebrate?
We're going to go out to eat as a team, drop a fat bill, and then
Spend all of the winnings in one night?
yeah, some steakhouse somewhere.
Hey, there you go. Get a nice steakhouse, maybe some Korean barbecue, have fancy meals for the next week, and maybe a good set for the boys. Good luck in your game, man.
Thank you.
We're all excited to watch it, and we'll go back to the desk to break this down.
Very collected from the support of the Oni Warriors, looking to try and find that win to make history for themselves. They've already made it, multiple times, not only getting number 12, but then also number 13, number 14, and now number 15 for themselves as well. The Oni Warriors have just been unstoppable. There have been teams that have been able to take single games away from them. Maybe some of those are along the lines of the Oni Warriors, kind of messing around a little bit using game twos after a big game one win. But no team has been able to really find what makes this team tick, what really works up against them. And I think the most important thing that I kind of gleaned from that interview there was Mifflin was these two teams have been scrimming against each other probably the most out of anybody coming into this tournament.
Yeah, so they know each other's game. Jake says he knows the Ferryman, but it's a coin. There's two sides to it, and the Ferrymen obviously know how the Oni Warriors want to play. But the Oni Warriors' style of play has been wildly different at this event than it was throughout the regular phase. Regular phase, the entire conversation was around the Oni Warriors was withstand the absolute onslaught that is the laning phase. Don't get soloed 3 times, and it won't be an issue. Well, the Oni Warriors haven't been doing that. Their games have been going a little bit longer this week and last week. We've got averages of around 35 to 40 minutes. They've been slowing down their pace, playing a much more objective-centric play style, playing around the team fight, the 5-on-5. And if that's the case, they haven't looked any worse for it, have they? Still make it here, still undefeated in sets, and they have completely foregone that regular phase style. I wonder now that we've got back into best of fives, this is their dedicated scrim partner. Are they going to diversify it? Are they going to stick to the slow play that's been serving them well in this event? Are we going to start to see the Oni Warriors speed things up? Only way to find out is by watching.
And one thing that we talked with Netroid about as we jump into picks and bans for game one between the Warriors and the Ferrymen, it was at the end of the interview yesterday, Netroid was saying, it might sound like quote-unquote copium by us saying this, but we kind of lost game number 1 against the Dragons to kind of see what game style they wanted to bring. We figured out what they wanted to do, and we were able to adapt to that and then win out the next 3 in a row. Going up against the Styx Ferrymen, and as mentioned by Jake, the fact they've been screaming against them so long, don't imagine we'll see that same, not saying disrespect thrown that way to where you just kind of give up the first game, but now knowing what the Ferrymen do, with the Ferrymen knowing what the Warriors do, I don't imagine we see that same, we lost game number 1, but now we know exactly what they want to do, because at this point, you should kind of already know what the Ferrymen want to do, not just with scrims, but with their full 5-game set they had as well earlier on this weekend.
Yeah, 7 hours of data to study last night if you want to figure out exactly what the Ferrymen are going to do. I'm sure the Oni Warriors have already taken note. You can start to see it reflected immediately in the bans. What was it that you had said? Back against the wall.
Give Hebo to Paul.
Give Hebo to Paul. Well, no backs against the wall just yet. This is game 1 of a best of 5, but Paul's not getting the Hebo, says the Oni Warriors, and he's not getting the Hell either. So 2 of his signature picks taken off the board. That does leave one looming threat, one phenomenal Paul pick that he has gone towards consistently all year. The Baba Yaga's still available.
We haven't really seen a whole lot of Baba this event, though. I believe Pagon played it a little bit just earlier yesterday. This weekend, though, largely absent. Has that mage been? We saw it a lot during the SCC preliminary bracket, a little bit during the quarterfinals as well, but haven't seen much of her this weekend. Rounding out the bans, at least on the 6 Ferryman side, Jormungandr, which has been kind of a weird pick for some of these teams. It'd be a game 1, team 1 picks it up, does really good with it, then team 2 takes first pick, they grab it, they do really good, and then everybody goes, all right, so it turns out everybody's good with this god. Let's just go ahead and ban it away at that point through. And taking the Horus away, I think this is not only a smart ban just because of how good that Horus is, but how good Horus has been for Jake specifically on this Oni Warriors team with how well he's been able to get some pressure over in that duo lane for him and Netroid. And then Sun Wukong is just an extra ban out there. But it will be a Thor first pick for the Oni Warriors and a very fast set Marty pick for the Ferrymen.
I think that's your mid ADC right there. Set mid, Marty in the duo lane. Couldn't tell you exactly where this Thor is going to go. We've seen SOT play it. We've seen Panatom play it. And when I've seen the 2 of them, if I had to compare them directly, I'd much prefer seeing Panatom play it. Just one of his best picks. Has so much pressure. The Oni Warriors still have a lot of high priority picks available to them. Yamoja immediately jumps to mind as just a really strong Guardian. In absence of Ganesh, feels like she's just the next best pick. Tons of sustain, can limit the relic selection of the enemy team, can dissuade them from going for less mobile characters. We'll see. That's how the Oni Warriors want to go. Otherwise, maybe you grab a Hunter in this slot. With the Ferrymen already showing their physical core, it's likely that the Ferrymen will ban them out this next phase, so that's exactly what the Oni Warriors do. That's the duo lane established. Aphrodite for Jake, Cern for Net.
Which is strange because the Izanami is typically where we've seen Netroid go to if it is left available, but deviating slightly away from the norm, picking up the Cernos, which has just been another strong pick. Not just in the Hunter role in general, but for Netroid himself. And so now the Ferrymen, figure out how they want to round out their top 3 of composition. The Aphrodite locked in could mean some support bans over towards Aurora and maybe force him a little bit further into the God pool, because we haven't had to see too much diversity from Aurora so far this weekend. We've seen a lot of Ganesh. We saw a lot of Atlas kind of picked up as well. Haven't really had to see how far Aurora's willing to go down in the God pool, and even the Horus as well as an option there. But an Erlong Shen now for the jungle for Sino. We've been seeing kind of the build path that he has been taking there. You've got your core 3 of your physical. Now the question is, where do the Ferrymen go for their bottom 2, and specifically for their frontliners?
You know, my concern for the Ferrymen already is trying to imagine how set dive interacts with what the Oni Warriors already have. Thor, you're not really diving him. He's doing the diving himself, and if it is SOT, we'll be tank. If it's Panatom, he's diving anyway with full damage. But Aphrodite and Cern together are just incredibly difficult for a set to deal with come team fight time. Cern's got the very self-sufficient self-peel of, I'll just drop Wild Hunt at my feet, good luck doing anything, or give me your beads. And then Aphrodite makes anybody tanky, gives over Undying Love, and it's very telegraphed when that set damage is going to happen. Spawns up like 80 clay soldiers, and they all start to stare at you in a line, massive lines on the ground. Maybe I'll press Undying Love when that happens. Oh, all of a sudden, every bit of the burst is immediately gone, and any damage that comes through after would be resustained. This is a concerning counter initiation already starting to line up for the Oni Warriors. That might put a timer on the set pick in particular. You'd want to get a little bit of action done early. Or you can all in on dive, pick up even more gods that can match up with set, follow him into that backline, become a spearhead style composition. Terra's got the potential to do both. She's very strong on counter engage. Okay, they're all jumping into my backline, Earthen Fury. Now we've all got damage mitigation and a burst of healing. Or, okay, well, I'm going to jump into their backline, Earthen Fury. Everybody's taking additional burst.
And Terra's been largely absent this weekend. Myth was one of the top picks to go in week number 1 of Masters. We get into yesterday. We're both kind of scratching our heads at this going, man, where's Tara been? Nobody's really picking her. Nobody's really banning her. She kind of just fell off. Same thing with, like, gods
They
like
had to have
Guan
forgot.
Yu. A lot of gods seem to have kind of been maybe forgotten or left by the wayside here in week number 2. But Tara once more now for the Styx Ferryman back in Aurora's hands. The question is then, where does Baskin go for his pick? And it seems the only Warriors were a little more concerned with Baskin. They banned away the Hades that he had in his performance yesterday. And then an Athena ban, which there is some flex maybe for Baskin to pick that one up, but maybe just a general ban as a whole. Only Warriors now draft up the Agni, with something we haven't seen very much at all this entire event.
No, Agni's just another one of those picks that can hold their own relatively well. Serket to round out the draft for the Oni Warriors. That will confirm the Thor for the solo lane. Serket in the jungle. Very strong dive potential now for the Oni Warriors. Clear targets too. That Marty gonna struggle alone in the back line. And the Ferrymen round out theirs with a little bit more dive. I had thought it would have just been a tier pick. Something that could burn those beads, make it a little bit easier for Erlong Shen to find the 9 turns blessing, set up for that fight, have Marty shred the damage. Instead, Robin. It's a CC light composition now from the Styx Ferryman. Tara and Erlong going to have to do a whole lot, and Tara struggles a little bit more so when compared to the rest of the Guardian pool at actually stripping away those relics. The root's going to hit somebody, but for the most part, they'll leap out of it or dash out of it or just wait it out. The stun's really the only real threat on beads. From Tara and then Erlong, it's mostly just that 9 turns blessing. And so, the Oni Warriors, who have already got an Aphrodite who's going to give over an additional set of beads and Aegis to whoever she's connected to, will make it even more difficult for the Ferryman to burn through those defensive relics. I like both of these drafts a lot, but the concern that I had brought up initially around this set and his ability to dive now also takes an additional hit because Serket's just going to jump on him too.
So I think now the question is for this Aphrodite. I mean, Jake has been, again, one of the only players who has found majority success on this style selection. I believe only dropping maybe 1 or 2 Aphrodite games over the course of the phase, compared to almost every other support who's only been able to find maybe 1 or 2
He's carrying
wins.
the win rate.
He has single-handedly gaslit the entire league into thinking that this is one of the best supports, and when it's in his hands, you believe it sometimes. But where does he connect to once we get to these late-game team fights? Typically, we think of things like the Hebos, the Bakasuras, maybe a Susano at some point. But who are you connecting to as Jake once we start breaking in towards these late-game team fights?
For the most part, it's probably going to be Panatom. Make it a little bit easier for him to execute on his dive. Serket, assuming Serket is in the jungle. I can't imagine a world where it's Serket solo. Serket does struggle a little bit once she decides to all-in somebody. She puts herself in place. It's the only time Serket is standing still. It's the only time it's easy to return damage is when she's doing it to someone else. She jumps on their back, and all of a sudden it's okay. Let's deal with her now. She's finally stopped squirming around the back line. But with Aphrodite linked up, Undying Love, additional protection, some healing, or most importantly, a little bit of additional burst. That back off from a range. Just so good because this new tank Serket build struggles a little bit in actually securing the kills. Any bit of additional damage that you can find non-committal from the rest of your team, which is essentially guaranteed off the back of your own taunt, just helps out.
The Oni Warriors undefeated coming into the grand finals. Can they hold that out? Can they win out game 1? Or are the Ferrymen going to kick things off early? Let's jump right into game number 1 with Gormizer and Trelly.
Thanks so much, J-Mac and Myth. That's right, it's Gore, it's Trelly. And of course, giving us the view into the battleground, it's Doug here for game 1 of the finals. Game 1, Trelly. Warriors, Ferrymen, a team that has been undefeated throughout this year. A team that's been struggling a little bit, and I think that shows here in the Twitch poll, 68%. Leaning in favor of the Warriors right now. The Ferrymen, they show up at tournaments. That's what we've been talking about and what we've been seeing. And even more importantly, gave us a lot of footage yesterday. And that can be a double-edged sword because we got to see a lot of what to expect from them.
Right.
So did the Warriors. And that kind of led into picks and bans. We saw it a little bit there. You had agreed. Seeing Sino on the Erlong felt great. Paul playing the set looked good.
Oh, yeah.
Robin looked good in that set, period. Do you like what the Ferrymen are bringing into this game, even though it's a little physical heavy?
Yeah, I can't lie. I mean, everything I know about this split of SPL tells me that the Oni Warriors should just, be disgusting and it's over and it doesn't matter what the picks and bans are. But the Styx Ferrymen got a lot of what they would expect. I mean, Cyclone back on the Marty. That's gross. Of course, Paul having this set. This was taken away from him so many times last night. And, of course, Baskin on the Robin is also a fantastic look. And because Sino was going towards Assassins and sort of building them tanky, I was like, why not just go back to those Warriors if that's the style of play you want to go for? And Erlong can build tanky. He can set up for his team. He's got plenty of lockdown and CC, all of which seems good. But then you have to look back and just say the Oni Warriors get an inherent buff. Like they just because they didn't get all top tier meta selections, I do have to give them that level of credit that everything they are playing is going to be, just played pristinely.
Yeah.
There's so little room for error when you're up against a squad like this. You have so much early aggression with the Surcat Panatom. He's got Blink, and you know he wants to get it on cooldown as quickly as possible. So I'm expecting to see some sparks fly early on, whether that be from the Oni Warriors or at the stake of the Oni Warriors. Regardless, I think it's going to have something to do with these Blinks.
And yesterday we were talking about it. I believe it was after Game 2, the Ferryman Hounds set. And there was a lot of conversation actually about the Aphrodite, to which you had proclaimed that you no longer believed. Also, Sot, I don't know what's been going over here, man. He's definitely pumping the brakes a little bit. You had no longer believed in it, but there was that caveat, which was, is it Afro and is it Jake? If it's Jake, then you know what? It's a different conversation. That's something aside. The Warriors, it feels like, have fallen into that category. And so that's maybe something to expect this set, or at least this game. How aggressive do you think Sino can be here? Is he waiting for level 5 before he can really kind of dictate the pace? I saw that gank. Thought maybe they would go for something with a warrior assassin, but it just felt like they didn't have the punch behind it that they needed.
Well, if Sino's Erlong has taught me anything over the past couple days, I've gotten to watch it once again, this tanky style of Erlong, I should say, is that he's down to go for some early cringe ganks if possible, if he can find that opportunity. And up against the Thor, the opportunity's certainly there, right? Sot's got no relics up. If he hammers on the wave, we've already seen him get very low because of Baskin's poke. He could head over to Solan really at any moment. As long as there's ward coverage, he's not going to be the biggest at fear. Sot has, the wall. He's got the CC. He doesn't have to worry about too much lockdown. But all he has to do is step up towards Totem or go in for the cooldown buff. And if he does that, could be at risk of an easy blink from Sino. So I think keeping tabs on where this Erlong is definitely a smart call here for the Oni Warriors. But yes, he can certainly get aggressive. It's not because, Erlong does lose a lot of his early game damage over the years, and he doesn't have that 100-0 capability. But if he's got help from Baskin, if he's got help from Paul, there's still some kill potential for sure.
Yeah, rip Mannequin Scepter. If that was here, man, Osiris, Erlong, they're still riding high. Right now, though, Erlong, who was in the conversation a lot last week, he transitioned into that conversation just last night. And I think Sino made a very good point as to why this god is hanging around. I do want to harken back to the last game that me and you cast, though, which was the Warriors-Dragons Game 4, where we were scratching our heads a little bit, mainly because of something that's happening very similar to that, 4 physical instead of 5 physical for the Ferryman. But it just allowed Jake to build physical prots pretty heavily, and I think there was at one point, it was around mid, I believe around the beacon. Jake made a save, and we were both left speechless. Because we're just like, why do you let this guy have it? I'm still a little speechless from how well he has played it. Do you think that makes the Aphrodite a lot easier to play, knowing that you don't have to worry? It's not about health, it's not about magical protection, you don't have to worry about a Thebes and stacking it. You can just slam a Sovereignty first item and be happy.
Yeah, you just have to slam the Sovereignty and make sure you're on point with who you're attached to, who you're kissing, and then who you have the immunity for. And Jake is one of the few Afros that I feel like does not have that problem. He is always on point with using those immunities. He's always on point with getting the ults off at the right time. And the biggest point, never waste them selfishly on yourself, right? Oh, I'm about to get killed, I'm just going to ult myself. No, it's almost always for the team, which is the reason that this Afro support can be lethal in the right hands. Things like a massive skewer from Paul or a taunt in from Sino, things like that. The dive that the Ferrymen have can be nullified if an Undying Love is timed at the right moment. So I got my eyes on Awesome Jake. Maybe around when the beacon spawns in, we'll see him rotate towards mid, and whether it's Pagon, whether it's Panatom, or even Netroid actually rotating in, I do expect him to get some massive value from that ability.
We did also mention, I think, that it's a little bit of a cheat code, that Jake has 4 people that he can connect to, and it's not a bad decision.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it makes playing the Afro a little easier. Do you think that, especially considering, I'm surprised we haven't seen any blood at this point, right? It feels like these comps are designed to fight. Maybe it's just because they're designed for dive. Maybe it's a little more late game focused. But Sot, relatively low earlier on. Sino's been focusing over here, is even going for a blue buff invade. And that should be a pretty easy one to pick up. But it's these little moments, right, where it's just like, okay, small lead. I mean, gold is practically even between these two, so a blue buff here or there. It needs to stack up to really make a huge difference. Then we get into late game, and I look over towards the Warriors, and we've seen what tank items can do and enable, people like Raven. Do the Warriors have enough? Like, are the items going to be enough to carry how squishy their comp is otherwise? I mean, they have no Guardian, nothing that screams out super standard. Is that going to negatively impact them if this game continues this pace?
It does seem like having no dedicated engage is a bit of an issue. It's a lot riding on Phantom and SOT to hit good CC. But the Oni Warriors have been playing this style of Smite for quite some time, and I don't think it's going to impact them.
They're unpredictable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I want to bring up is, Sino shows up to blue buff, gets an easy invade there. Sot tries to go for the steal, but a great zone by Baskin. The Ferrymen do exactly what you'd expect, trying to play through their pressure. And usually when that happens, you have two options. That's Panatom. The Circuit could say, hey, I'll help you with your blue buff. I'll be there first. Or B, I'm rotating late. I'm just going to try and steal the Ferryman's purple buff away, but neither of those happened. It was just Panatom was a little late, and Sot's going to suffer for it. There was an attempted purple buff invade, but it wasn't from Panatom. He was still over on the right side of the map at the time, and of course Aurora was able to confirm it for Cyclone, so sits just fine at the moment. But this Thor might take a bit later to get online. You've got teleports, you have to watch your positioning. Robin should just be winning these trades pretty consistently.
Yeah.
So SOT might have to sit back for a while.
Well, I've got good news for him. I see 2 Transcendences and a Thebes. There's so much stacking happening on the Ferryman right now. Admittedly, the 2 people who are going to show up to his lane aren't on the list of anything I just mentioned, but that slows it down a little bit, right? That gives him some time to marinate before he has to come in and cook. Panatom walks right over a ward. Baskin immunes out the taunt, and what otherwise could have been a pretty nifty little gank falls flat immediately. Baskin even positioning at least aggressively. And Charlie, there's a lot on the line here, right? I think the Ferrymen come into this set kind of recognizing maybe where they've been. Aurora had mentioned it in the interview. They've only played the Warriors once so far, and that's just this year. I mean, they had to play them in the main phase, but didn't get to see them in playoffs because the Warriors got immediately tripped into Masters. And so they have to play carefully. They've got a lot of footage. And they try again for a blue buff invade, but this time Panatom's on time. Pick that one up, no problem. Keep things neutral here. 8 minutes in, and not even a full 100 gold, maybe just slightly over 100 gold, separating these two teams. Just moving the goalposts a little further back every time, but positioning right now could be a big deal. Jake, Netroid, aggressive against a purple buff. Paul's in this side of the jungle, though, as is Aurora. Doesn't seem like the Warriors are willing to take the fight, nor the Ferryman. So Trelly, it all patters out.
Yep, that's the end of the possible aggression. I mean, Netroid's like, hey, I want to clear a wave. Jake's like, maybe we can go for an invade. It's not going to occur. That's why I always said probably towards Beacon. That's when these supports might leave their lane. But for now, it is a true duo lane. Net and Jake are attached at the hip, and Cyclone and Aurora. The same style of play. They're going to sit in left and just try and confirm shield buffs and maybe go in for purple buff invades. All the while, Sino has been showing up to blue buff pretty religiously, but this time SOT knew it was coming, just goes for a good wall and confirms his own blue buff with some help from Panatom, of course. I just don't see a reason to fight at this point. If you haven't fought over any of these buff camps, if you haven't looked for any opportunities to blink in and find aggression, you have a level left. That's pretty much it. If you're blinking in before beads are available for Sino or for Panatom, that's it. Once they hit level 12, they get that second relic, you lose the opportunity, and you're just fighting over objectives. So Beacon is going to bring everyone into mid lane. So far, Aurora's making the first rotation in. And we see the first ult of the game.
Yeah, it's a huge taunt from Sino. Pulls in 2. A lot of damage onto Pagon, but the disengage is there. Agni and Circuit, slippery. Both able to get out, but very importantly, you had mentioned not just no beads for Panatom, but now no beads for Pagon. Opens up some opportunity. And Charlie, I'm looking at timers, doing some quick math, which is never recommended, but should be down when the beacon comes around. And that makes a huge difference for how Pagon interacts for the next couple of minutes.
Yep, he's going to have to watch his positioning. Notably, Paul doesn't really benefit from his beads being down too much, just the slow that you might want to beads, but he has the opportunity to go back to base. pick up an Aegis or a Shell, whichever one he finds more value up against that set, and it will be the Aegis. So at least has a bit of survivability in the mid lane for now. But as you said, Paul, he's got that full Transcendence finally stacked up. He's got Jotuns. This set can be big damage numbers popping out if he's given the opportunity to stack up Kingslayer, if he gets those set clones down. There just hasn't been an opportunity. There hasn't been any ultimates. I mean, I did lie. I said the first ult of the game. Pagon's dropped some bombs for poke, but besides that, the actual ult with real cooldowns, a 9 turns blessing from Sino to pull some beads, and that was it. That's the end of the scrap.
Agni's ultimate has an asterisk on it.
Yeah.
It is an ultimate in name and slightly in function, but not in cooldown. So the Warriors still holding on to this. This is where things, at least to me, they get a little scary. We're right 11 minutes into this game. You've seen some scrapping. And a lot of it wasn't even like full scrap. It was a taunt and then some beads and disengage. There wasn't a lot of return damage. There wasn't a huge fight, a huge grouping. It was a 2-on-3. So it wasn't even like a full even fight that we've seen. And it gets a little nerve-wracking, at least from my point of view, because I don't know anymore what to expect. Like, how much damage is Paul going to do at this point? You know, you see the Transcendence, you see the Jotuns. We know what he's done in the past with that. But how well is Pagon going to play against it? We haven't gotten to see too much in that regard. So maybe a sprinkle of nerves for whenever the fights actually break out. But the damage, it's just going to be on the rise. And I expect about 10 seconds, that beacon, when it spawns in, it's going to cause some trouble. Right now there's a grouping from the Ferrymen already over here. And it might be as simple as that. Presence, pre-hand, or preemptively, opens the opportunity. Jake and Panatom step up. Sino goes in, gets the taunt onto Pagon. And that is going to be an easy disengage from the mid laner for the Warriors. Now Presence once again for the Oni Warriors. Holding on to the capture point, but Shelly, this is the awkward part. Staring at each other. Not quite able to engage. This is where you had said the Warriors might struggle a little bit. Aurora moves forward. Counter-engage is going to be the conversation. Damage is split. Jake takes a little poke, as does Aurora. Panatom has to disengage carefully. But it is Ferryman. Full control of the capture point. And they're going to pick up the beacon. Should be the retreat from the Warriors.
Yep, smart call. I mean, the Ferrymen group up. At the very least, Nestroid was able to push one wave under tower, while Cyclone Spit did make the rotation in, and now setting up for an ambush. Marty's got ult, so Cyclone has a lot of safety. It looks like they don't want to try and overcommit, considering that Aurora was also there, but it's a Gold Fury attempt. No ward coverage spots this out, but Aurora, he's got good ears, and up to the sky goes Sot.
Yeah, this is going to give some vision. Good dunk hits Aurora as well, and might just be the opening they need. The transformation and the damage is there, and first blood, 13 minutes in, goes to the Warriors. Gold Fury still picked up by them, but leash now. Cyclone, as well as the rotations from the Ferrymen, force the Warriors to fall back. So it's first blood and done.
Yep, Paul had the nice cutoff as well, coming over from mid lane, so smart call. Just get that first blood, get out. Going in for a 50-50 with the set skewer nearby. Probably not the smartest idea. And a beautiful ultimate there from Sot, but I've been talking about rotating out of lane, right? Baskin was already getting the better end of the scrap over in solo and is now able to find a 2-level lead just by not rotating, right? Sitting in lane, pushing waves. He went in for the beacon and then immediately after went back to lane. Sot said, hey, I'm going to go to this Gold Fury. I'm going to find a nice ultimate, but he might need to spend a little bit more time in lane trying to catch up now just because Baskin is going to be getting the better end of the XP trades for the moment. If you don't rotate out, you don't use your teleport, you just get some items online quicker, it can make your life miserable if you're a carry on the opposite side, right? Pagon doesn't want to step forward to a Robin. And of course, Netroid hasn't really fought with anyone so far this game, so you just show up to a level 15 Robin with 3 items. Not going to be the best look. So I think that's why Sot is going to be sticking over there for a while.
Hanging out. Seeing what he can maybe do in a 1v2. Sino showed up over in his lane and at least put some pressure onto him. Second relic does come through for Sot, and you know, safety maybe is on the mind originally before that comes through, but the choice is going to be Asunder to deal with some of those shields. We were actually talking about this in set 1, looking at what Raven can do. I think we even talked about it a little yesterday. He's obnoxious in the best case scenario. And so the Warriors, at least here for Sot, itemizing to deal with Baskin. It should enable Pagon, Netroid to do some of what you were just saying they would struggle to otherwise.
Yeah, I think peeling for each other with damage is the best way to describe it. If Pagon and Net are standing next to each other, they don't have too much direct CC. Of course, Netroid can drop the Wild Hunt. But Pyromancer started up here. Baskin did make the rotation over. Of course, the Oni Warriors know exactly what's going on. They've got their own ward coverage, so they're going to stand by. Which is a bit of a damage check. Just to check our response time. Hey, if we pull this, are you going to immediately know what's going on? If the answer is yes, we retreat. Simple as that. But the Pyromancer still could be something that both of these teams would like to fight over. I think the Ferrymen have an easier time trying to burn through it, just with the set damage. It's going to be a little bit better than Agni towards an objective like that. But of course, trying to go for an attempt while Agni's nearby is always risky. Pagon can just go for a steal over a wall, and he doesn't have to commit too much of his damage at all.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. And the simplest of states. Ward coverage, actually, thank you, Jake, for clearing one out. It's an easy transition. A lot of heavy ward coverage from the Warriors on right, specifically around the Pyromancer pit, but a little bit of vision for solo. Deep wards, because as of right now, Trelly, outside of one kill, no neutral objectives have gone down. Pyromancer started up by the Warriors, and it looks like it's going to be a secure, but one that was a little iffy at that. Aurora tries to get in there, unable to do so. Runic Bomb picked up by Panatom, and the Warriors don't want any fight afterward. They back away. And that's the way they've been winning this right now. I mean, you know, neutral objective, the first blood, but a tier 1 on left. It's small, like blemishes, really. It's not even like a full cut, but it's enough to open things up, give them a little advantage, 1,300 gold, which could disappear now that the Ferrymen have started up the Gold Fury. Response time is going to be there. Baskin's alone. Wall stun is good, but it blocks everyone out on the other side instead. The turnaround CC seems great from the Ferryman. Slows the Warriors down and forces their engage to turn into a disengage. Stops the fight before it can happen.
I love that play from Sato. It was a question mark of, are they going for gold? Are they going for gold? Sat's over and right. He knows Baskin's there. Instead of just clearing the wave like most solo laners would do, instead of backing to base, then teleporting in, whatever, he just TPs immediately to mid tower, hammers in, and says, alright, do I have to go up? Do I need to ult this? Gold Fury. It can be so defining for your early game. A swing in either direction is massive, and you just do not want to give it up. So Baskin makes the clutch play to walk over, and Sat has to immediately burn that teleport just to make sure that he's within range of the Anvil of Dawn in case they do decide to go for a true 50-50 on the Fury. But it has been left side pressure here for the Oni Warriors. I think that Cyclone's been staying relatively farmed up, and Netroid already got the tier 1 tower, and because of that, he's been able to go to the Gold Fury quickly. It's only Aurora. This is going to be a true 50-50 with Sot zoning. There it goes. I mean, so much presence to the left side of the map just for the Warriors to grab it for free. At the very least, Baskin might be able to trade towers here. He's going to have to tank it up for a while, but he should have the damage to do so.
Yeah, we'll get that one. But Charlie, suddenly the landscape's looking a little different, right? You know, I was just going to talk about the fact that experience, 1,300, 18 minutes, that's not a big deal. But now with a Fury, but also experience on the line, I mean, you've got 2 levels for support. The 1 level lead, or 2 levels that it was earlier for Baskin, has dwindled at this point. Sot's been able to get a lot more farm, get back in this game. And now, you're not quite at 2,000 for the Warriors. And because we're 18.5 in, maybe that means this gold lead doesn't mean as much as it could. We'll have to find out in the team fight. The beacon spawns in. Aurora is stunned out, but still trying to contest. Has assistance. Everyone but the carries has rotated over to mid to try and fight over the beacon. Pagon, as you had mentioned earlier, non-committal damage over the wall. Is just trying to get some bombs dropped out there. Good CC, and now Cyclone spins here. Netroid a little slow on the rotation. Has to take a very careful, cautious path to join his team. Sino waiting in the Invisigrass just off to the side. Charlie, it's even overall for the capture point. The taunt! The 9 turns blessing from Sino. It's too short. Doesn't connect here, so we'll get the healing. But there's some taunt last coming out from the Warriors. Recognizing an opening that is now just closed for the Ferryman. They have nothing that they can do for the engage. Jake and the rest of the Warriors step up, and the Ferryman, they recognize they can't fight.
I honestly can't tell if he was put into combat or just messed up his blink. Either way, Sino gets no value from that ultimate. Easy beacon going the way of the Oni Warriors, and they all channel their backs. I mean, that's about as free as it gets. It didn't look like he was put into combat. It really didn't. It seemed like Sino just thought that he had the range, or maybe was accidentally blinking into a wall. And that 9 turns blessing down means that the 6 Ferrymen want to back up. Baskin's pretty far forward, but is also extremely tanky. The kiss hits. And not too much damage follows up. So Baskin gets to walk out to see another day. Panatom just wants to make sure the blue buff goes the way of SOT. But that's the neutral objectives for now. Pyromancer is about to touch down, and the Oni Warriors are already looking towards this objective. And Cyclone Spin should be able to try and equalize that tower. Both of the ADCs are on the left side of the map, so groping up towards Pyromancer. Probably not the immediate play, but still, something you got to keep in mind. Ward vision, trying to match the rotations of someone like Basket at the backline could be important.
And I was going to say more important to stay safe.
He was just looking.
Well, yeah, he was just vibe check. Hey, how's everything in mid? You guys good? Cool, you're good? I'll leave. Backs away. Speaking of a vibe check, Cyclone Spin up into the air. Panatom gets aggressive, goes in for the taunt. That is going to force the beads out of Cyclone Spin. Now Sino, Aurora join the fray. And so does Paul, but now on to Jake in the Gold Fury pit as they're starting to collapse, and Jake might just be the sacrificial lamb here. Has to walk away the healing, doing some work, and it gets him disengaged, pushed back, and then a miss from Basket and Kiss as well. The root has to do it here. Someone has to kill this Afro.
There's no
but
way.
has he pulled him too deep? He's pulled him so far, and he stays alive. On top of that, now Sot re-engages and locks him down. He's going for Sino, and he's got the backup of his team. They turn the chase into punishment. Netroid gets the second kill for his team, and the chase continues.
They have so much damage. Aurora is definitely next up on the chopping block. Do you have the jukes like Awesome Jake? No, sir, you're gone. Now the Oni Warriors get to siege forward, and Jake plays that so perfectly. I can't begin to explain how many times he used the back off to disrupt the CC, was able to use that regrowth to zoom out perfectly. His shell was even perfectly timed. And now the Oni Warriors get to walk up for the free Pyromancer. There's no way Aphrodite should live there.
Wordless. I can't think of anything other than Jake should not be allowed to play Aphrodite. It just feels different when he is the one piloting.
And then the 180 kiss too, like he had to turn around. He had to turn around and make sure he landed it. Man, I thought the second I saw Baskin go over the wall with Mystic Rush, I'm like, okay, unlucky, he's dead. He had some nice jukes.
There were at least 5. Okay, surely he's dead now in that entire pathing.
And I can't wait until Smite Pro tweets it out later to watch it again because it was absolutely amazing.
And this is just because look, I've been watching Smite for a long time. Aphrodite jukes don't happen often.
No.
Because Aphrodite support doesn't stay meta super often. The last time you've seen anything even close to that is probably launch tournament with Shadow Q doing it on Dignitas. Like, that's how deep you have to go to get that level of performance. And I'm going to say it now. Jake just did it better. So, really, a fun one to watch. Like you said, immediately they turn that into a Pyromancer Trelly. It's only 3 kills. But it is now 4,000, just shy, 3,800 gold in their favor. Almost the same amount, 3,600 experience in the Warriors' favor. Level 20 for 2 of them, with a level lead over Paul for Pagon. And even though it's been a slower pace, you're seeing the mechanical grace, I guess, of the Warriors, right?
Yep.
The reason that we keep talking about this team and the reason they are just so highly valued in this tournament is literally everything that just happened in that fight.
Yep. And because of that, the Styx Ferrymen are split pushing. They're like, maybe we should stay away from those guys, right? Let's group up over on right. Sino and Baskin. There's a tier 2 tower. Maybe we could group up for it. Unfortunately, Panatom's nearby. And the Warriors say, go ahead, group up for the tier 2. We're going to try and grab one of our own. 3-man squad over in mid. Only Paul to try and clear the wave. But help from Runic Bomb. That tower drops immediately. So a massive objective going the way of the Oni Warriors. Extra gold in their pocket. And they didn't have to use much for it. They're still around the Primal Fury. They're still close enough to FG just in case they overcommitted. But they didn't. And now with Netroid, Pagon, and Awesome Jake heading over to the left side of the map, Primal Fury certainly could be something they're looking towards. Not a lot of aggressive warding here. It's mostly vision from the Styx Ferryman. But, I mean, are you that worried? There's not a Thor ult in the sky you have to watch out for. There's not an invisible Circuit. A lot of the Styx Ferryman's engage is very telegraphed. They're going to show exactly what they're looking for.
Something that gives you plenty of time to react if you're the Warriors. And reaction time right now is maybe what's going to be necessary. We talked a lot about the Beacon over the last couple of weeks because of the Season of Souls, the new update, what it brings, the Titans clashing, how important that's going to be. About a minute for that to spawn in, and then for the Titans to start fighting afterward. Meanwhile, Warriors get a Primal Fury, and Trelly, it's opening up the conversation for what this late game's going to look like.
Yep, and we got to see, for the first time, if you were confused about that symbol on your screen, SOT picks up the Rune Forged Hammer. meaning whenever that symbol shows up, his team's going to want to fight around that. That CC helps him out. And especially if he tries to upgrade it to one of the glyphs, could help him out when you had all this different CC that Thor provides off the Anvil of Dawn, and of course, off the wall. I like how Jake and SOT were trying to figure out, do you want the blue buff? You can have it, man. But Fire Giant's here, 25 minutes in, only 3-0. Gore, there's something about the games we cast together.
I was thinking the same thing.
That means we are only going to get 3 total kills by the time that we're 25 minutes in. Not for a lack of trying, though. If the Styx Ferrymen had it their way, there would at least be 1 more kill on their board.
Huh.
And because of that, Beacon's coming up, and
No
Jake
way.
and Netroid start FG. Baskin, he was privy to this, though. He's already nearby.
And that's going to be the immediate pullback. I think they were hoping for a heavier presence around the beacon from the Ferryman. And unfortunately, in a play where you try to be sneaky, you lose both here. So the Titans, they're going to be spawning over on right, Trelly, so that gives an opportunity for everyone involved to fight a little closer to the Fire Giant, as opposed to what we saw yesterday, Warriors' massive fight against the Dragons in the FG pit, then had to run all the way over to left to deal with the Titans that were clashing in the middle of the lane. So some wiggle room, maybe for them to start pushing up. And that brings us to map state, right? Tier 2, Tier 1 gone for the Ferrymen in mid. They're going to try to retaliate some of that here and now. Netroid, pressure on from Baskin, good taunt from Sino, and the carry just gone from the Warriors. Ferryman finally put one on the board, and Jake might be the second to follow. Your impressive jukes earlier, they worked out so well, they just won't work this time. Ferryman step forward, find 2, and continue their engage if they need to. Baskin zoning, ready to punish any one of the Warriors if they step forward, but Trelly, they recognize their scenario, they pull back, and the Ferrymen are going to set up for Fire Giant.
Yeah, positioning a little bit confusing there. SOT and Panatom are going to have to try and go for a steal already. Panatom to the back line as Baskin's trying to zone out, but Fire Giant's getting weak. It's half health, and this Urquette's trying to find a moment to go in.
Surely he won't. Surely he will not. He's going to hang around here. Good taunt, but the CC forces him to use that mobility to get away instead of to engage. Sod is here. Sod's taking a lot of damage in the process. The prod shred is there. The damage, the follow-up for the Ferryman. They tie it up 3-3. They do leash the Fire Giant in the process, Trelly, so it's going to live a little longer. Baskin goes for the zone immediately onto Pagon. Panatom, the two who have worked so well together, trying to get something done here for their team. Maybe delay, but they just cannot hold on. 27-40 in, the Ferrymen get the Fire Giant, tie up the kills, and put themselves in a spot to push with their Titan.
Yep, they're able to deal with the Order Titan. The Oni Warriors are not able to try and defend, so they're going to go to the opposite side of the map. Do they even step forward, though? It seems like Pacon and Jake want to try and defend Tier 2. Not the best idea. I'm thinking Phoenix, a much better place to try and set up your defense. All the while, Netroid's a little far away. I'm thinking the team needs to group up here sooner rather than later. We've seen what a Titan can do if given freedom towards that Phoenix. And the Styx Ferrymen recognize that they don't have the freest time going in for that objective, so they're just going to back forward and just say, hey, we're going to let our Titan die. Unfortunate, we get the Tier 2 out of it. We have Fire Giant on 5. Let's go get some upgraded starter items. Bluestone Brooch for Baskin. Protector of the Juggle from Sino. The Sigil of the Old Guard for Paul. All of these upgrades coming through. If you thought the fight before was a little bit more difficult, Styx Ferrymen have equalized kills. They're close to equalizing gold. And those upgraded starter items are going to make their fight a lot easier. All of which comes from, in my mind, just curious positioning there from the Oni Warriors. I don't think Netroid and Jake being that far up is necessarily a problem if everyone else is nearby. If Sot's close, he's got good peel with the wall. If Pagon's there, of course, if Panatom was closer. But because they weren't, they just did not have enough survivability to try and back up.
Well, maybe deja vu. 2 players on the Warriors really far up, while the rest are not to be seen, but it's Panatom and Sot. There's a lot more mobility in these two.
They're just pushing.
And their disengage is going to be there. And yeah, despite the fact that they lost the Fire Giant, they just let a Fury go the way of the Ferrymen. They are still ahead in gold, and they are still getting aggressive. Not as much ahead, at least, as they were before, or as far ahead as they were before, but enough. They can get something done. They're even looking for Sino wall. Just a little late there from Sot. Panatom might get locked away, has to throw Sino back. And once again, the 9 turns blessing a little shy. Not able to pull Panatom back in. Paul, though, gets aggressive, gets the kill, and gets what the Ferryman needed. 2 minutes left on their Fire Giant belt. Great polymorph coming from Netroid to try and force a disengage, but the Ferrymen, they just keep chasing. Now with Sod up in the air. How does he play it? He dunks down to be with his team. try to get the peel. And that's going to allow the Ferrymen to continue their push, go back to the towers, and get objective-oriented.
Yep, they try to go in aggressively. They grab the tier 2 tower, but overstay their welcome. Even getting Panatom to blink in onto Sino. This didn't seem like the smartest call, and now the Ferrymen get their attempt at a Phoenix. Netroid does not have an ultimate. It's just Awesome Jake for survivability, and Pagon's got to clear out these minions.
Baskin takes a lot of damage up front, but they don't have the burn. Paul has to fall back for the same reason. Bombs from Pagon doing so much for his team, but they need CC. Trelly, this is where what you were saying earlier really starts to showcase itself. They don't have enough engage. Cyclone, Fortune of the Sky, half health. Has some damage to turn things around. Sino goes back, 9 turns Blessing used and healed, and it's paying off here. Netroid gets low, and Baskin is able to confirm that one. Sends him to the penalty box for 60 seconds. Gives them a number advantage around the Phoenix. Fire Giant buff, though. Not a lot of time to work with. They want to try and get in here and get engaged.
Yeah, Baskin still has ultimate. Paul has that Kingslayer as well. They're healing up for a reason. This Phoenix is the target. Only 33 more seconds on the buff. It's all going to be on trying to defend and try and stall this one out. The Oni Warriors have their ults back up, and now the siege begins.
Well, they get aggressive. Sino in the right spot to try and lead the way, but a good wall from Sot keeps 4 of the Ferrymen back. Roar takes a lot of damage, but they still get the Phoenix. Now it's the disengage from the Ferrymen. They get their support out alive. The rest of them all in the green, more than happy to let the leeway go the way of the Warriors. Now, Fire Giant wears off in about 3 seconds. They're going to pick up a Pyromancer on the way back, and Trelly, you have to say, a very, very successful Fire Giant for the Ferrymen with how much they were able to pick up on the map and how much of a lead they just stripped away from the Warriors.
Yep, you lose your tier 2, but at this point you grab a mid Phoenix, you get to catch up that gold lead and put yourself in the lead. All the while, and you finish a good portion of the Styx Ferryman's carries builds, which is a big deal, of course. Sino gets access to that Pridwin. Paul finally finishes that Heartseeker and gets the upgrade to Jotun, so this set is going to be hitting even harder. We saw how much some of those skewers were doing. And now I think the Oni Warriors are a bit on the back foot. They're still going to play aggressively because it's the Oni Warriors, but need to be near that enhanced Fire Giant at all times. Styx Ferryman, they don't have that much shred. It's not like they can do it sneakily. You know, they're not going to pull it anytime soon and just have the Oni Warriors have no idea. But if they get a wipe, if they get 2 picks, we've seen what's able to happen. Already the Ferrymen siege forward. They want to try and step. They find Sop, but he gets to wall the ultimate off, so Sino does not get to use it, doesn't find the CC, and doesn't actually go on cooldown. So 9 turns Blessing certainly still available.
But well timed. I mean, for Sot to hit something like that, like in the split second that you have the opportunity, at least slows it down, forces the Ferrymen to rethink their engage. Sino's going to go back in, try it a second time. Get some damage onto Sot. Pin is going to be good as well. You talked about the damage shred. Damage shred right now is being applied elsewhere. Panatom tries to isolate Paul. Tries to get that kill. Unable to find him. Now Jake maybe too far forward. Has to use the Undying Love. That's 2 ults down now on the side of the Warriors. Call it 3 with Panatom going in again. Wants to get Paul. Unable to find him, but there's going to be the dunk. The wall. No, nothing connects from Sot, and now he's deep in the water. What can he do? The disengage seems to be clean because the Ferrymen aren't looking for the fight. The Warriors want a little more, but the stuns, the CC, the engage, Trelly, it's just not there to keep things going. But it creates a lot of space. They can fall back, maybe have a little bit of an advantage in the Fire Giant.
Yeah, I'm a bit puzzled by that play because Panatom, you said yourself, wants to find Paul, wants to isolate Paul. That does seem to be the call. But if that's the case, why are you building so much tank stats? You could 100 to 0 set with that build if you go a little bit more damage, but Panatom's going for that survivability. My guess, hey, I'm going to get him to like 30%. Sot, you go to the sky, you finish the job. Unfortunately, Anvil of Dawn just was off the mark, didn't quite reach, and Paul gets to live to see another day. But Set loses beads. That's a big trade for Panatom's Blink. That's going to be worth it. And as far as survivability goes, all of the Oni Warriors have their survivable relics up. It's just Jake who had to use pretty much everything to guarantee that him and his team were able to get out safely. So that shell not going to be up for a while either. Probably going to be a double down here until the Styx Ferrymen decide to step forward. And considering Paul's beads are down for 80 seconds, doesn't seem like they're going to want to make a pull on fire either.
You had said it earlier. Burn right now. Both teams have some capabilities of it, but not enough that the other team's not going to notice in time. So you've got to make it work. You got to find some picks. You know, we always talk about gold leads. We're approaching that 35-minute mark. It's not even a full 2,000. Still slightly in favor of the Ferryman. You can see that in some of the finished items. The roller coaster ride. That is, I guess it's really just one mountain peak. That is the gold chart there. Slipping away from the Warriors, have to kind of shape up. But Trelly, this is the kind of game we've gotten used to, specifically because of the Hounds, right?
Yep.
We're getting to the 35-minute mark, and as you like to say on the desk, sometimes you can start to forget. And willingly forget like what happened in the first 12 minutes, which admittedly for us wasn't a whole lot. There was like one first blood, I think, at 13 minutes. Not a lot of action, not a lot of fighting, a couple of trades and the objectives, but these late fights can change the pace of everything.
They certainly can. Panatom is on a ward here, while Paul is hiding in the stealth grass trying to figure out where he can go in. Baskin doesn't seem like a good target, even with a nice wall. His HP is not going to get shredded down anytime soon, but the Oni Warriors were able to stall for their mid-Phoenix to spawn back in, and they dealt with all the fire minions. So map state relatively equal at this point. But where's going to be that engage? If it still is looking for Paul, his relics are back up. Those beads, you've missed the mark. So where do the Oni Warriors look to try and get aggressive? I'm guessing wherever this Circuit decides to go in. Oni Warriors grab the Pyro. Easy Runic Bomb in pocket. That should equalize the one that Sino has right now in his grasp. But no one's going for that pull. No one's touching EFG just yet. They're trying to see if they can pull a free relic or look for a fight.
Yeah, Sino right now looping around the long way. Vision becomes, I think, a huge aspect of this. We talk a lot about wards winning wars. This might be the best example. One misstep, one misplacement, whether it's on a ward or not, can change a lot. But knowing, seeing the rotation through the Fire Giant pit there, like the Warriors were able to because of their ward, makes it a lot easier to not get caught out in those moments. Tension's building, at least for me. One big fight essentially wins this game. You've got two exposed Phoenixes on either side, one weakened for the Warriors. An enhanced Fire Giant laying in wait, power potions being bought, builds being finished, relics, if they're not already upgraded, on the way to being upgraded, Trelly. And so it comes back to this engage conversation.
Yep.
And like you said, you're trying to figure out where they get aggressive. Pyromancer was a pretty easy pickup. Oni Fury, worthwhile at this point? Can you send somebody over there to take it, or is that too much of a heavy commitment for any one person? And maybe it's too much of a heavy commitment here. Good shot! Just beautiful. That's twice now.
Yep.
Sino has gotten CC'd just before his taunt can actually go off.
But this time he blinked, so that you do end up losing the relic for a taunt from Panatom. Not a great trade, not a worthwhile one, and actually, that was a Runic Bomb drop there, just to try and confirm some ward coverage. But still, I don't think you can send anyone over to solo fire or to solo that Oni Fury. It takes too long, considering there's no one building that
can barely get
crit.
to oracles.
Yep, Panatom has so much cooldown, no one's stepping forward. Good poke there, and now Pagon's getting doped by Bastion in the backline.
And that's the kind of damage you need to start things off. Paul is the target for Panatom. Has to dash away. Sot's in the air. Where is he going to dunk down, and who does he want to find the control on? Unfortunately, just off the mark from finding any CC, has to hammer out immediately. Ferryman now aggressive. Baskin leads the way. Good taunt from Panatom. Keeps his team safe, but the poke still seems to be there. Ferryman just going for the zone right now. Some health bars traded. None break the yellow, though, Trelly. And healing on the side of the Warriors means they don't have to fall back to base. They can instead re-engage. Ferrymen are airing to the left of the map. It looks like Cyclone potentially trying to start up. And Oni Fury cancels that call as the Warriors immediately run over towards right. They're going to heat check the Fire Giant standing on a ward. Vision is there. The Ferrymen have the option to retaliate. Warriors immediately drop. And Trelly, it is a dance that keeps on dancing.
Yeah, you just can't go for an Oni Fury there. I mean, the second it shows up, Paul actually dashes forward, and now the kill is trying to go for Sino.
Panatom wants a little more in terms of damage. Finds a lot onto Sino. Forces the beats. Makes him feel uncomfortable. But ultimates, if they weren't available, are now back up for the Ferryman. One big one offline for the Warriors. And that's a lot of what we're getting. A little bit of poke. Panatom just trying to swat at somebody. The Ferryman saying no, and then the rest of the Warriors going, well, rats, I guess we can't fight.
Well, rats. And that has been the case, yeah. Just see what you can do. Throw out some damage. A little bit of a heat check. Has not netted much. I can't tell you the last time we saw actual blood spilled. 8 total kills. We're 40 minutes in. Enhanced Fire Giant has not dropped. It has been a long time coming. And it's been a lot of this. Paul has been dashing forward, using his escape to engage. But
and
again,
not getting punished.
There's just not enough damage to try and punish. The way Pantom is built has made sure that, yes, he's extremely tanky and has plenty of CC, but can't just 1v1 a set in the backline. It won't happen. This time, Sot does get taunted and he's gone.
I mean, in the blink of an eye, just instantly gone. And now I don't know that the Warriors can fight the way they seem to think they can. Jake takes a lot of poke in the process of hanging around, but Fire Giant should be the open call for the Ferryman. Difficult, though. In a 4v5, you could still lose things if you don't have great secure. Neither of these teams have drafted for that. 41 minutes. Just a little shy of there for the Fire Giant to potentially fall. Second one of the game, first enhanced. And it's at half health. Ferryman in control of the pit. Baskin hanging around towards the right. Paul gets aggressive, dashes forward, much like he has been the entire time. Jake, CC'd, has to use the ult to get away, and the damage is not locking him down. Panatom deep behind the Ferryman, trying to get something going, but they still have 20 seconds without Sot. 20 seconds in a 4v5 to try and make this work. And the CC, the control, just seems to be there from the Ferryman. Netrua takes a lot of damage. Jake takes a lot of damage, and one of those, both of those, the duo lane for the Warriors, sent into the grayscale. Gone. And now the siege forward from the Ferryman. You don't even need the Fire Giant this late into the game. You just need 3 clean kills, and the mid Phoenix opens up the base, opens up the opportunity, Trelly, for them to walk in. And even though it's been lengthy, even though there wasn't a lot of blood, try their best to end this game. The damage seems to be there. The Titans doing a lot. CC from Sot is helping out.
That all should do it.
Slow a little bit, but that damage from Cyclone seals the deal and gives the Ferryman one in hand of a best of 5 against the Warriors, and a hard-fought one at that.
Yeah, lot to discuss there, if I'm honest. It seemed like the Oni Warriors put a lot of weight on starting the fight with Anvil of Dawn, but if Sot never got the chance to initiate with the ultimate, the Thor pick seems kind of useless, right? If you're just hammer, then throwing a wall, then that's it. I mean, Baskin is almost never out of position on Robin because you have so much safety, you have so much CC immunity. With Thor, if you're leading with the ult, tremendous value. If you don't have that ultimate and you're just standing there getting caught out, we saw 4 different times where Sino tried to blink in and find an engage. Doesn't matter if he messed up 4 times, he got it once, and that won the game, right? They find Sot, they find that pick, it's done.
A lot of opportunities and fizzled out fights, right? The engage was almost constantly there, both teams trying their best to get in there, but you had highlighted it super early on how you didn't expect us to find a lot of fights because you looked at the Ferryman, you said they have some engage, but it maybe relies a little too heavy on the right-hand side of the map. And then you look towards the Warriors and you said, well, good luck. It's a lot of counter-engage. Good for you. And unfortunately for them, it's not enough to hold on to it. A massive lead early, but they fall nonetheless. Ferrymen find themselves up 1-0. Still a long best of 5 to go. We'll see what happens right after this.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, come on. They try, but they can't get rid of me. I keep on coming with energy. I keep on bringing that energy. Energy. I feel on top of the top. I think outside of the box. I won't fall into that box. Energy. Live up to my name. Go around, take the blame. Never wanted other fame. I stay away from that lane. I can still wake up and ball out. All in my court, I go ball out. Look at my baby go all out. Energy. Yeah, come on. Come on. I could write this in my sleep. Say you don't sleep, but I sleep. That's why you're sleeping on me. Why? Energy. Don't say a word or a peep. Me, I'm just me, I'm me. I keep it true, I don't sneak. Energy. I hit being on the road. Hard as a home when I'm home. Watching my babies get old. That gets me into my zone. That gets me into my groove. You know I'm nice, I'm not rude. Got no time for attitudes. Energy. Yeah, come on. girl love my bop and I like me too. No roof on my top and my babe see-through. Hating on the pen, don't stop, they ain't gon' feed you. I've been all on my grind, so why I need you? Baby girl love my bop and I like me too. No roof on my top and my babe see-through. Hating on the pen, don't stop, they ain't gon' feed you. I've been all on my grind, so why I need you? Big flex, my swole up. Double cup and I'm pulled up. Hating like hold up. What's the problem? I'm pulled up. Big flex, my swole up. Hard body, they fold up. Shorty say I done glowed up. Double text on my phone up. With your boy, I'm the man of the year. I'm not a fan of your peers. Serve him a fade, I'ma hand him the shears. He not the man of your peers. Heart of a lion, I'm trampling fears. I love the man in the mirror. Cry me a river to stand in the tears. You better stand in the clear. I'm going crazy, fugazi. How would they ever go with a kid? Put it on, baby. You do not faze me, boy. I do not get what you did. Eating that kitty, she stuck to my rib. How can I trust him? He the pigs. Bro got a Glock and a couple of C's. He think about splitting a couple of wigs. Shotty my DNA all real. Sweatsuit, all heel figure. And I ain't even gotta deal with you. If I ain't never split a bill with you, I got Hennessy and horchata. Baby girl wearing nada. Growing from a cider, bad robe in his Prada. Fiji water by the cold glass, granddaddy by the Ziploc. Flex season, I'm road running, I'm staying all on my tip top. Young man with an old mind, so I ain't worried about slight. I be up till sunrise, I'm staying out on my night shift. I got a bottle of bourbon, a bundle of honeys, I'm jiggy, I'm flexing it. Figured I hit it and quit it, I'm busy, I ain't got the minutes for texting it. Came from the gutter with me and my brother, I'm moving my mother right out of the city. I'm a star and they know I go hard, so I'm kissing them babies and signing them. Gold blinging like Chingo, rock star like Ringo. Checks coming in back to back, I'ma line them up like bingo. Oh, I think that they like me, they be all on my wood tip. Not a stain on my white tee, I'm popping all of this good. Big flex, my swole up, double cup and I'm pulled up. Hating like hold up, what's the problem? I'm pulled up. Big flex, my swole up. Hard body, they fold up. Shorty say I done glowed up. Double text on my phone up. Baby girl love my bop and I like me too. No roof on my top and my babe see through. Hating on the pen, don't stop, it ain't gon' feed you. I've been all on my grind, so why I need you? Baby girl love my bop and I like me too. No roof on my top and my babe see through. Hating on the pen, don't stop, it ain't gon' feed you. I've been all on my grind, so why I need you?
Then death takes front stage. Let's liven things up, shall we? Oh, the party's this way.
Thanks to our good friends over at Advanced GG, you can now bring the party to your house by picking up a Baron's Brew shaker and the Baron's Brew energy powder as well. So make sure that you go over to advanced.gg, search up the Baron's Brew right now. We got a beautiful purple shaker that you can get, one of my favorite colors, one of my favorite guys. You already know I'm going to be picking one of those up, as well as the flavor. If you buy them individually, you can use code SMITE and get 10% off, or you can save even more if you buy it as a bundle. That is both all three options available to you, as well as all the other great options that Advanced GG has over to you. So make sure you use code SMITE for 10% off the non-bundle order, or just buy the bundle so you get the best value from both of them. Thank you for Advanced GG for joining us in Season 10 of the SMITE Pro League in Year 10 of SMITE. Game number 1 here, though, Mifflin, of our Grand Finals first matchup here between the Warriors and the Styx Ferrymen. Started off great for the Oni Warriors, got themselves a late first blood, about 13 minutes in. A fight around the Gold Fury ends up netting the first kill. And they pull themselves up about 7,000 gold or so. But then they make one costly mistake on the right side, push a little too far in soul lane, and the Styx Ferrymen down that 7,000 gold, effectively even up the game, tying up the kills, and then being able to find that final punch at the end of the game.
It seems like the meta as it stands right now, it is incredibly difficult to turn an early game lead, even if it is significant at the 5,000-6,000 mark, into anything substantial. Objective secure has almost all but left. It just seems like that nobody is able to do a fire giant easily, into the face of 1 pick, 2 picks. If there are 3 people alive on the other side, there's going to be contention. There's going to be some sort of fight around these objectives, and a lot of these teams, these high-stakes environments, aren't willing to leave it up to risk. So if that's the case, a lot of what happens throughout the early game tends to lose a little bit of its relevance. The amazing escape that we saw from Jake, where he slips between 5 members and makes it out at sub 100 HP, phenomenal, doesn't really get a whole lot accomplished because one costly mistake at the 40-minute mark, at the 50-minute mark, is all it ever takes to find a win, and the Styx Ferrymen are given that opportunity. Paul finally finds a successful dive into the back line, SOT overextension, as you said, and the Styx Ferrymen punish the Oni Warriors heavily.
The Styx Ferrymen able to find their success in late game. But maybe that's also some extra credit for the Ferrymen, because every single one of their games yesterday was hitting that point there, that 35, 40-minute mark, where they've gotten so much practice against teams like the Eldritch Hounds and even up into their scrims at this point. So I'm not sure, as far as scrims go, how long the Oni Warriors and the Ferrymen's games were going. But
no way their scrims are going that long.
But at least in the competitive on-field play here in this environment, the Ferrymen now have at minimum 5 games of practice just from what they played against the Hounds yesterday, and then their matchups earlier in the week as well. They've got 5 games of practice at this 40-minute mark. Oni Warriors, most of their games, they're ending by that 30, 35-minute. We even looked towards the Jade Dragons games yesterday, and they were going relatively quickly up against the Jade Dragons. Only, I think, 1 or 2 of their games really extending to this point. So far, at least competitively, experience to the Styx Ferrymen in this late game. It's where they work best so far. We'll see if they can make it work again in game number 2 as we jump into the picks and bans between the Warriors and the Ferrymen. So maybe then that kind of opens up the conversation of draft for the 2 teams away from the early. We've seen that early pressure doesn't necessarily mean as much anymore, especially if all it takes is one small mistake a little bit later through. So do you then, maybe as the Warriors, slant that draft to be a little bit stronger for these late-game team fights?
I think that is certainly a potential that we could see, especially for mid laners. It seems like a lot of action happens around the side lanes. We'll see maybe some skirmishes around control points, but for the most part, throughout the entirety of this event, even in the event of a mid laner dying, it's a 1-level disparity, maybe 2 levels at max, and that's not really netting you a whole lot. So make sure whatever carries you do elect to pick up do scale well into that late game. But it's also a tank meta right now. That's just as true as I think it could be, well, especially when you take into account how much damage that Robin ended up doing by the end of the game, nearly topping the damage charts with a, I believe, 4 dedicated full defense item build. And so it was very difficult to find these opportunities to do much throughout the early, and even when those do happen, objectives are generally traded across the map. One team grabs gold, the other grabs pyro. And so having something that can guaranteed perform at that 30 to 35-minute mark becomes more and more valuable, especially now with 6 games, 7, 8, let's call it 9 games in a row that we've broadcast have all gone to that 40, 45-minute mark. It's essentially guaranteed with how evenly matched these teams are that you're going to have the opportunity to take a late-game team fight. Make sure you have the best foot set forward when you get there.
Well, in these best of 5s, we always talk about adaptations from game 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then if the set extends to the 4th and even final depths of game number 5, what changes get made. Oni Warriors, their snap decision. Game number 1, they banned Ganesh, Hell, and Hebo. Well, Paul's set was apparently too much for them as the game got further on, and instead, they trade out the Hebo ban for set. Now, that's not to say that neither the Oni Warriors can pick up the Hebo themselves. We know that both Pagon and Panatom very fluent in those gods, at least themselves. There will be a Thor first pick once more for the Oni Warriors. Styx Ferrymen, their side, stick with the same bans, the Yorm, Horus, and Sun Wukong. But the Ferrymen recognize that this god pick has been left open. And when Paul wants a carry pick, Paul will get one. Hebo and Marty for the Ferrymen.
This was a different version of the Ferryman yesterday when Paul was allowed to play this Hebo. I believe first blood on second wave. Since then, just continued to tear through the team fight. The game does eventually extend to that 35, 40 some odd minute mark, but at the end of the day, I believe it was a 10-0 slash line for Paul at the end of that match, and one of his signature picks to be sure. Gotta keep your eyes on him. It's not a standard, it's not a standard Hebo build when Paul's piloting it. Get used to seeing some Breastplate of Valors, perhaps some Ethereal Staffs, a little bit more utility from this Hebo. It's afforded to him. It's a luxury afforded to him, I should say, by the fact that he's just going to hit all of his abilities because he's Paul, and also Hebo's got really good base numbers regardless. And so you're not sacrificing too much in damage. Marty, going to flank the Hebo for that top 2 selection. Good pressure out of the dual lane. An ability hunter will sacrifice some objective burn, which could make it difficult to look at Fire Giant come late game or Gold Fury in the early. But you make up for that with persistent damage on field, tank shred potential, and very, very good just map utility. Those tall grass bundles, those patches they're able to drop 3 of, makes it so difficult to track the enemy team.
Opposite end, though, for the Oni Warriors, Izanami. Pick that's worked really well for Netroid over the course of his phase so far. And Terra pulling that one away from Aurora, now putting it into the hands of Jake. So this screams to me at least a pressure dual lane early now for the Oni Warriors. And for the Styx Ferrymen, their final selection before the second wave of bans will be Robin once more. Still some flexibility if you want to throw that one over in the jungle for Sino, if you want to put that one in Baskin's hands. Given the performance Baskin just had, would not be surprised at all if the Ferrymen end up dragging that pick that way. But I wonder now if the Oni Warriors ban the year-long Shin. Sino's been very comfortable in this pick. Now he's gotten 3, if not 4 games in a row that he's gotten to play Erlong Shen if it gets drafted again. I wonder if maybe some respect thrown over towards Sino in the jungle here.
Maybe. Restricting Sino, what else would you really want to deal with? It's not a composition from the Oni Warriors where you're like worried about Nike. I don't think there are many teams that are overly concerned about the Nike, but if you want to take a shot towards Sino and one of his favorites, that could be a good place to put some of that pressure. Maybe even look towards some of Sino's more eclectic picks. E-Set comes to mind. That would help out a little bit around the objectives. But the easier one would have been the Erlong Shen, and had I been a bit smarter, would have called that one out as well. The Oni Warriors will take a shot at Sino. Take away one of the initiators from the Styx Ferryman. Gonna have to find that CC elsewhere.
I think you're right to call at least the Nike. If I'm not mistaken, was one of the games that the Styx Ferryman won in their set yesterday against the Eldritch Hounds. I think it's game 2 he pulled out the Nike and found a win there for his team. There will be Yamoja alongside that band for the Oni Warriors, so still taking a shot over at Aurora, recognizing that there is still a powerhouse support still available. We'll remove that one off. Meanwhile, Styx Ferryman taking double shot at Panatom once again. This Kali has been a consistent band so far this set, which is strange because we haven't seen very much Panatom Kali over the course of this phase, even really over the course of much of his career. And then Bakasura, which has been one of his powerhouses. If we look back, God, kickoff tournament, I think is what I want to say, where Panatom is just running the show on a pick like this one. So it will be a Ratatosker instead for the Styx Ferryman. Something that Sino has shown that he's comfortable on, and one that he can still kind of maybe build that tankier style of route.
Surely the Oni Warriors just put the Thor in the jungle and take a tier for themselves here. Tier, very good at diving the back line, a mobile Marty, if you could stun him. You've got decent chain CC potential already from the Oni Warriors. Hebo could struggle against that dive. Anything that's burning relics consistently and making it easier for that Thor to actually find value from Anvil Dawn would go a long way. And having some more consistent CC, of course, would be very valuable. Terra's got the stun, Thor's got the wall, Anvil of Dawn, but those are a little bit more single target. So getting some of those defensive relics off has to be prime on the mind of the Oni Warriors. That would leave them in need of more consistent damage, but mid lane selection still available. And plenty of mages viable. Instead, Lancelot, the lock-in. It's got to be another SOT Thor game here. Put Panatom on the Lancelot. Massive cripple field with the Grand Joust. It'll hurt Rat ever so slightly, but the rest of the Ferrymen aren't so worried about it.
Now, we have seen Lancelot flex between 2 roles. It has been the jungle and the solo. I believe on initial release, solo was more often than not the spot where Lancelot would sort of land for a lot of teams. Is there still merit in maybe a solo lane Lancelot style of play now, or do you think that maybe some of the change to what his prior itemization was? I think Soul Eater was a very common thing that he would build in the solo lane, with that one maybe not being as potent. Do you think that there is a better spot for Lancelot in the jungle compared to the solo lane now?
Yeah, put him in the jungle. That's where I'd put the Lance. Thor solo, tried and true, seen it a fair bit. Even when Lance was getting played solo, I believe it was just about variety and only variety. Taking it for himself and had middling success on that pick. I mean, rotations out of Soul Lane would have been nice on the Lancelot, but Thor just does it a little bit better, and Panatom is a Lancelot fan. If you watch his stream, he's playing it in ranked pretty consistently, has good damage output. Early game, you've got 100 to 0 potential. That tends to fall off around that level 15 mark. Then it's 100 to about 10% potential. Need a little bit extra from the rest of your team to secure some of those kills. Grand Joust now does have an additional target, though. Atlas could struggle with that dash in situations like that. I'm not a massive fan of the Lancelot. I'll get ahead of it now. Feels like Lancelot, very high execution. If it's going to be a much more assassin-centric build from him, and Panatom generally does like to go a little bit more damage-heavy in his builds, it's really difficult in the current meta for Lancelot to find his full value when the entirety of the enemy team is going to be tanky, including Paul on this Hebo. So, can it work? Yes. But I'm putting a lot of weight on the early game. If he gets off to a fast start, it's going to look good. You've got great chase down potential. He's one of the faster assassins in the game. But if it's another slow-paced match, Lancelot was almost never picked for his late game potential, even when he was at the top of the meta.
Yeah, it always did kind of feel like get that early first blood on your Lancelot, whether that be your jungle or your solo, and then just kind of steamroll the remainder of the game out through there for the Oni Warriors now, probably wanting to get that early game kind of bring home a little bit of what they used to bring as far as the game was concerned. Get those early 20, 25-minute style of wins. Kind of unheard of in the current meta that we are in. Typically, like 30 minutes is about that early sweet spot for teams, but maybe trying to get a bit more of a lead leading into that point. So we've been seeing typically 5, maybe 6,000 once we're hitting 30 minutes. It's kind of been the largest gap that we've seen, and then if it keeps going in favor, maybe by 40, we're up 12, 13,000, but then it's kind of mute at that point.
Yeah,
so
then it's 40 minutes in.
Yeah, then you're 40 minutes in. Everybody's 6 slotted at that point through. So if the Oni Warriors getting off strong here could be their best opportunity to do so. Duo lane might be a great place for the Oni Warriors with the Seasonami. It's been a great pick for Netroid. We'll see if the Oni Warriors can tie up the set in game number 2, or the 6 Ferrymen going to put themselves on match point. Let's jump right in. Delay no further.
It'll be a fun one here in game 2. And Shelly, that's because we've been given something interesting. You know, we were talking a little bit about it in the hall as we walked through, saw the picks and bans. The Thor coming back for the solo lane. Pagon on Merlin feels like something we haven't gotten to see in a long time. Just like that, I haven't seen that in a while. 50-50 down the middle.
Yeah.
In a Warriors game, nonetheless, for the Twitch poll.
I'm guessing Twitch poll is seeing what I'm seeing. The fact that the Oni Warriors, I'm not going to say they're taking ego bans, but they are not banning away what I would expect, right? You know, giving Paul the Hebo is a bit frightening. Of course, basking on this Robin once again is something I didn't think he was going to get his hands on. And Cyclone, he doesn't even have to think in picks and bans. He's like, yep, Marty, okay, I'm going to leave. Like, I'll go to the bathroom. You guys just grab me, Marty. Yep. Bye. Like, yeah, that's the only discussion he really even needs to have. So, the Oni Warriors are clearly confident that they can beat this sort of draft. When we saw how the Hounds were able to stump the Ferryman, there was a lot of, you know, picking Paul, his set, his Hebo, his Hell, banning that out, and then just dealing with the rest. We'll see if the Oni Warriors get to that point, but at the moment, Paul on Hebo, Vaskin on this Robin, and Cyclone on the Marty. Scary stuff, not to mention the Atlas has been such a prominent pick in support recently, that Prot Shred. And in a meta like this where so many members of the Oni Warriors are going to be building tank stats, even Panatom in the jungle, probably going to lean towards it, means that that extra Prot Shred from the Gamma Ray Burst does end up helping out in your team fights quite a lot.
Now we got to talk about him. Maybe we're going to have to hold that for a second. Panatom, early kill this time. Sino shuts down the jungler early on, and that's exactly who I wanted to talk about, the Lancelot. And Charlie, already Mifflin not big on it. You maybe not feeling too much about it, but now first blooded as well. Ferryman put it on to Sino to boot. Plus they get it sub 1 minute. That has to be a bad start for the Warriors.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, especially because of how much early damage Hebo brings. The stun from Sino was enough to confirm it. SOT and Basket both taking up archers. A double tap would do it. As SOT have the hammer, though, doesn't look like the cooldowns are coming through. And you think Sino is heading over. That might have been called out. Pagon said, hey, there could be a rat coming your way. Just be careful. The blink is still available. So SOT's not going to toss that hammer anytime soon.
Well, he's still hanging around over here, though. Sino and Sot. There's the wall. Nothing big going to come out of it, though. Just a little invasion. Not even an invasion. Just a cooldown buff over towards the Ferryman. First blood for Sino is a huge deal. And no immediate retaliation. Have to be careful around the tower line in the duo lane. because the pullback that Aurora brings. On Trelly, the Warriors favored up to this point. Aurora had seemed excited to play him, and I think we're starting to see why. A very, very solid start, and what could be a little bit more. Sino, again, laying in wait on right. Solo or Troll is getting low. They just need a little more damage. The Acorns get a little bit of that poke out there, but not enough yet. The blink is good, and the autos are there too. Up for the Ferryman, and both on the jungler.
Yep, saw it. And this is something that Baskin has learned from facing SOT in Soul Lane, is that he will do anything to make sure that totem goes down. When the totem spawns in, he will even ult to try and confirm that kill. But Paul, pretty far up here for a gank from Panatom, but he hits level 5 right at the worst moment possible. Now Panatom has to try and run away.
Has to play carefully. And they will, Jelly. They're going to get away this time around. But maybe the worst case scenario, as you had said, Panatom and Pagon unable to do anything here. Cyclone and Sino both able to find some advantages over their opponent. But Sino specifically with 2 kills, just a little shy from getting level 5. And an engage from Sot, not for anything other than some poke. But a 2-0 start for the Ferrymen, 3 minutes in. They're making up for the lack of kills last time around.
They certainly are. Off the back of this aggression that Ratatosker can bring, Sino has been driving the pace of this game so far. And I like the style that Panatom was going for, like a good gank onto Hebo, trying to make sure Paul feels a little uncomfy in mid lane, but unfortunately, again, goes from level 4 to level 5. It's a big difference. Going between level 3 and level 4, you still go for that kill. But once he gets access to Crushing Wave, you say, ooh, maybe I don't want to fight this guy anymore, and probably a smart call. One more Water Hands, and Panatom was in execute range, essentially, from that Crushing Wave, so the first gank doesn't quite work out. Panatom is trying to catch back up here because Sino has had so much success already. Considering, what, 3 kills at 20 minutes last game? There's already 2, and they're both on Sino. 4 minutes into this one. Trying to match that pace is not going to be easy.
You have to be careful as well. Pressure on the duo lane. And you had said it, Cyclone doesn't even have to think half the time. He's just playing the same god he's been playing. And at this point, it's comfort. Netroid's going to have a little bit of healing thanks to some health pots, but also to Jake there, keeping him a little more enabled. And Trelly, this is a rare sight. Yesterday, I feel like we got to see Netroid, if on Izanami, it was at the enemy tower line the entire time. Now, pushed under his own tower, having to play cautiously. If you're over on right, you're having to play cautiously because Baskin is just running the show. Sino, as mentioned, has the 2 kills. What about the Lancelot? That's the thing that's really I keep coming back to. Is just it hasn't shown me anything yet.
I mean, and that's also what I want to bring up. Look how much Sot has to juke just to clear waves because of this Thor and a Robin matchup. I don't see why he went back to it a second time. Panatom shows up near Paul. I mean, a knock up into an ult kills him for sure. Paul doesn't want to dive the tower, though. He could have Crushing Waved. He could have traded his life there. Decided against it. Probably the correct call. But
it's
either
to send
way,
a message.
Yeah, it's just, he said, hey, your life's in my hands.
Yeah.
I didn't click 4. You've been spared. How's it feel?
I control your fate. Let that sink in. And honestly, it's kind of scary. That's where Panatom's at in my mind right now. Late game, Mifflin had mentioned it with the ultimate that Lancelot can bring. It's a massive cripple field, but that doesn't affect a whole lot of people on the Ferryman. That was his highlight. What do you, in your eyes, outside of the fact that Panatom just likes this pick, what could it bring? If we ignore that Panatom just really likes Lancelot, what does it have here to have its merits at least being attempted in Game 2?
I mean, you can build tanky, because we've seen Lancelot played in the Soul Lane, of course. You can build tanky and still get some decent value. It certainly wasn't the best pick available, but it was something that Panatom likes, feels confident on, and can build tanky and just dive, right? If he's trying to set up for his team, it seems like that was the play in game number 1. Hey, I'm going to go in first, and then Sot you can dunk on after. Whatever I get down, you can chase. And that same style of play can be implemented here with the Lancelot. But it didn't work in game number 1, so going to it once again is a bit puzzling. We'll have to see how it tends to work out as this game continues. But the Styx Ferrymen, pretty much all lanes, have been getting some good pressure. Even with Netroid on this Izanami has not been able to just push waves for free. Went for a decent purple buff invade, but had to use the ultimate, the Dark Portal, to confirm. So not going to feel too safe in lane for now, especially when Sino's around. Through the Cosmos could get over there in an instant. That rat. Even diving underneath tower, something like that, could be a little spooky.
It's going to take some time, though. A lot of action early on. You had mentioned maybe a weakness of SOT, always going for the totem. Causes him a little bit of poke right there, but he stays alive. Because lucky for him, Sino was in mid. Haven't seen too much from the Ratatosker after getting the ult, which is actually when I expected to start seeing more of the Ratatosker. Still playing aggressive are the Warriors. And Trelly, I mean, 2 kills down, you know, especially as early as they happened, don't lead to a ton of neutral objectives. Right now, it might end up leading to some retaliation. Jump from Panatom onto Paul. Damage is there. The knockup not going to be available. Crushing Wave only does a little bit, and the damage from Panatom is there. Not only that, the horse helps him disengage away from Sino, and the Warriors pick up a kill. Now they're looking for a second dash forward from Netruoid. Damage switched from Aurora onto Cyclone, but it's not enough to get a kill onto either members of the dual lane. The Warriors have to fall back in that regard. Instead, they step forward, defend their own blue buff against Baskin for Panatom and SOT. Damage is going to be there. Confirm is going to be there. And then the jump versus jump action. Baskin leaps into Panatom. Panatom dodges it, and that forces Baskin to fall back. SOT gets the blue, and it's a kill plus some scraps for the Warriors.
Yep, but Baskin gets to just dominate this lane for free. Awesome. Jake uses a lot of his cooldowns. There's no way that dash is coming up anytime soon, and Aurora will get credit for that kill. Just stepping way too far forward there for a green buff invade. I mean, we were talking about XP. Baskin's got a 2-level lead, call it 1.5 at the moment because he hasn't quite cleared that wave out yet. But this is what happens every time SOT steps up to clear. I mean, this Thor v Robin matchup just does not seem fun. If you're getting the value later on, when you're able to dive onto these carries, then it makes sense. But has not been able to use that Anvil of Dawn aggressively. It's just interesting because last game we weren't even talking about fighting at this point. We were saying maybe once the beacon spawns in we'll see some scrapping, but already 4 kills so far. Set a completely different pace for game number 2.
And it shows aggression. I mean, Sino, you see Ratatosker, you'd expect him to get hands-on early. And he delivered. But I think a good clap back from Panatom, right? Keeping him close in level. You had already mentioned the fact that Solo's starting to separate a little too much. And the last death for Jake. Definitely, I think, shaking things up for support in favor of Aurora. But otherwise, Charlie, it feels like they tested the waters. They found it comfortable, but not something that they're interested in right now. So the Ferrymen have slowed down a little bit. Little over 1,000 gold in their favor. Nothing too massive to write home about. We're about to crest the 10-minute mark. Now, 12 minutes is the Stygian Beacon. Gold Fury's already available. And then the Pyromancer will be up in the next few as well, probably around 12, 13. So a lot of little objectives, not even little, a lot of neutral objectives, big ones at that, to fight over. And we had expected the last beacon to be maybe a beacon of hope for us, right? A fight finally shining, and a game that had no kills at that point. This game, I see Sino, I see Paul. I'm a little worried for the Warriors to try and engage around it.
Yes, trying to fight around those ultimates can be pretty difficult. SOT is going to be up against 2 trying to confirm his blue buff and does not have the beat, so if that hammer gets stunned out, might be an issue. Or how about trying to stun out Sino, who's taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, he got the double tap, and Sino gets up into the air and manages to disengage. I was wondering, will the Warriors chase it down? How aggressive do they want to play? Ult was still there for SOT, but blue buff is their target. Blue buff is their goal, and they are successful in finding it. And I think in the blink of an eye, what we just learned is that Sino's bullying days are at least not over, but he's going to get bullied back if things don't go well.
Right, and that's the difference in the builds, right? I think Panatom going way more tanky as the Manticore spikes, probably will be going into even more defense later on, whereas Sino just went into Brawlers. He said, I want full damage for the early game because I'm 2-0 and I'm sort of running the map. That was a bit of a damage check, a bit of a wake-up call for him, and does decide to go into what I assume is Stone of Binding next, just trying to get some of that extra safety. And, of course, a good wall from SOT means that Beads could have helped him out of that trade as well. But you can already see the vision towards the beacon because it's going to be spawning soon. I'm wondering, because SOT's teleports up, Baskin teleports up, but the solo laner is going to make an appearance. Seems like that could be the call, as SOT is sort of posturing towards the mid lane for now. Might push out one more wave, but we already saw in game number 1. Both of these soul laners have no problem making the rotation in for the beacon or teleporting just to make sure that their presence is there. Because it can be a big buff, stacking up, starting off this early on, and really benefit your team fight as the game continues.
It's available for capture. Jake and Baskin are already over there. Sot is still in solo. So a numbers advantage, 4v3 right now in favor of the Ferrymen around the beacon itself. And they're going to have an enhanced capture rate because of their numbers. Paul, again, a lot of damage, has the ult. Same can be said for Sino. Pagon steps forward, Pagon knock up, damage is there, root is good. Forces Pagon to play under the tower. And that's going to give the Ferrymen the Stygian beacon. And Trelly, they play it as carefully as they can. They play aggressively where they need to and fall back where they don't have to engage.
Yeah, but it was Sot who did make the rotation in, but Netroid tried to show up, which means that Cyclone Spin didn't rotate out. He pushed a wave under. It's just a bit curious to me. If you're going to give up the beacon and say, hey, Sot's not coming, then why did Netroid show up? Why not just push another wave and try and get some extra pressure, keep your tower alive, that sort of thing? But decided against it, wanted to try and help out, and we thought Iza's presence there could be enough to swing the fight in their favor. But the Oni Warriors have not found too much aggression so far. It's been a lot of counter re-engages. If Sino steps up too far, yeah, we'll go towards him. He doesn't have beads, that sort of thing. But Sino's got the beads now and is trying to build into a little bit of a more hybrid style build, which means these attempted fights probably won't be lasting much longer. Gold Fury's still an option, but with Cyclone Spin stacking up Soul Eater, probably not something that the Styx Ferrymen want to go for anytime soon. So just going up for neutral camps and showing face on these fights has been the call. I'm still thinking it's Baskin, though. Baskin might be the real driving force of this team.
Yeah.
We see the Robin rotate in, that's the go button. Sure, Sino's got a good portion of the kills, but when you've got that Robin backing you up with how tanky he's been and how unafraid he is to step up to some of these team fights, you just feel a lot more confident about your dive.
He's made things easy for him. Last time, I believe they only had a single Sunder to try and deal with the shielding on Sot, and it never really seemed to make a huge difference, at least in terms of the kill basket department. And much like you, Trelly, you know, we were scratching our heads. But the Robin not only made it through, I mean, it was third pick for the Ferryman. There was plenty of opportunity to either ban it, maybe up front, or to pick it away. And it's still causing a little bit of trouble over on right. The rotations are maybe where, as you had highlighted, it could have some of its biggest impact. Pyromancer's up on the board. And Sino happens to be nearby. Does not seem like it's a commitment from the Ferryman, though. And much like you said, with the Fury on the other side, there's an opening, but Sino still finishing up the stacks for the Soul Eater. Presumably just waiting. We're clipping up to 15 minutes here in Game 2. It's 3-1 in favor of the Ferryman. And just shy of 1,000 gold. So this Pyromancer could be a huge deal. For the Warriors, it equals things out. For the Ferryman, maybe gives them a substantial lead. Sot has to play carefully, though. Barely makes it up into the sky. And that's going to be the absolute disengage from the solo laner. Bodied in the jungle. And now a numbers advantage for the Ferryman around the Pyromancer. But Trelly, they're not going to go for the pull just yet.
Nope, they are not. And remember, this is how last game ended, that exact play. Blink on a Sot, his hammer's down, we can dive him, he doesn't have beads. Sot learned his lesson, picked up the beads immediately, and because Netroid's got so much presence over on the left side of the map, a free Gold Fury heading their way. Aurora is trying to step forward, but with the zone duty from Awesome Jake, this should go down. And that's just off good pressure. I mean, pushing Cyclone Spin back to base. The Pyromancers, where we thought a fight might break out, doesn't end up happening. And once again, Awesome Jake surrounded by 5, but he gets walled off.
Walled off. The stun is good for his team, but not good for Jake. So it is going to be a support for Fury trade.
Sot's just laughing. He really just killed Jake, and you're okay with it?
Based on that reaction, yeah, he seems okay with it. Hey, by the way, finals, by the way.
I bet you, and I know exactly what Jake just said.
Jake doesn't seem too happy.
Jake said, unlucky. Like that's all you. That's all you can do. Like the enemy Thor walled me off. You got to tell yourself that. So the Styx Ferrymen get an easy pick. And by the way, Jake was extremely tanky there. Lived way too long. If there was not a wall in his path, guarantee you he walks out, even up against 5. But Sot, make sure that doesn't happen. And Jake goes down The Styx Ferrymen get a runic bomb in tow, and Aurora says, hey, yeah, I'll grab that, no problem.
So objective for objective? Not a very happy expression, but I think that might just be resting gamer face right now for Jake. Nothing too crazy.
Oh, I see a little smile cracking. Hold on.
He's getting back into
it. He's like, all right. now that I look and the gold's not too bad, it was kind of funny that you walled me off there.
Yeah, it only changes hands, slightly. They didn't even get a full 100 in favor for the Warriors, so now you're in a spot where the Ferrymen are back to where they were just a few minutes ago. Nothing too crazy happening. Sino dancing on a ward. Jake has vision. And actually a pretty heavy rotation over to this side of the map coming from the Warriors. Dash from Sino, not going to get caught out, but Banatom was looking a little deep. Not going to find anything. Trelly, I feel like we're in for a little bit of a pause. Tier 1 tower on right gets taken down by Baskin. He's going to keep pushing forward. But neither team, despite the aggressive positioning from the Warriors, seems too inclined to fight until that beacon starts.
Yep. Starting up soon. Solo laner's heading over. You can tell Baskin went back to base, immediately starts booking it for the objective, but Sot, he's staying over in right lane, wants to get a little bit more farm. Doesn't even have the upgraded teleport, so best he could do is tier 1 tower. Does have Anvil of Dawn though, so could land down essentially immediately as the beacon spawns forward. But I love that the Styx Ferrymen have always had that vision down there. They make sure they know exactly who's on the beacon beforehand, who's behind it, and that's something Pagon was privy to, so he ended up getting the counter ward. Either way, immediately the Ferrymen are starting the capture point. And Sot, he's not even here. I think, again, the Oni Warriors going to give it up.
Not much you can do about it at this point. It's already getting capped too quickly. And the Ferrymen easily step up to that one. Sot is going to trade it out for what looks like a tier 1 tower, though it's going relatively slow over on the right. And there it is, the tier 1 tower. So a little bit of gold shifting back and forth. Keeps us pretty much in the same spot we were in before. But Trelly, you had mentioned it. Maybe it's something we'll see come to fruition here soon. The buff that you get from the beacon. We talked a lot about move speed, which is something honestly very helpful for someone like a Hebo who struggles otherwise. But I also think something right there, right? Structure damage that's going to stack up whenever you pick up that beacon is a huge deal when you're going to start sieging.
And that's the thing. Sieging becomes so important later on, so stacking that up now certainly helps out your late game. But no real sieging happening anytime soon. The objectives are down. Oni Fury should be spawning up here shortly. And Sot sort of forewent, trying to help out his team over on left to get some extra farm. Hopefully we see that Anvil of Dawn get its money's worth once these fights begin. But Netroid has actually fallen behind Cyclone Spin, which is perplexing because he was able to push down the tier 1 and force this Marty back to base pretty consistently. But still, Cyclone has had plenty of farm to himself, it would seem. And actually, it's Sino over on the left side of the map, just trying to keep that XP lead nice for himself, sitting at 2-0 and 2 assists now for the Rat. And I thought it was going to be that Stone of Binding, but it actually goes in for the Archdruid, so both of these junglers finding some value in that extra damage, that extra enhanced auto attack after using some abilities, and of course, just the hybrid builds, right? Some extra HP, some extra protections. That is what both of these junglers want, and they seem to be mirroring builds as much as you really can with the Manticore spikes as well. But the Oni Fury spawns in. It's a full 5v5 grouping. More often than not, it's been Baskin or Aurora who've been finding the first leg up in this fight, but it is the Ferrymen who have that aggressive positioning. They're going to go for the pull.
And the other question, engage and changes for the Warriors in terms of draft. What does it mean? How are they going to play? Well, the Oni Fury pulled now by the Ferryman might help answer that question. Half health already for the Fury, leashed, and dropped by the Chaos team. A little bit of aggression coming out. Cyclone Spin with the ult. Now Sino with the ult.
Interesting.
But Sino, I think, recognizes his team's not going in, immediately has to retreat. Panatom's still on the mount, stunned out by Sino, but doing a decent job zoning, and so despite being the first aggressors, the Ferrymen are the ones to retreat. Oni Fury now picked up by the Warriors, pulled towards them. Watch the map carefully. Oni Fury should be pretty confirmed and easily at that for the Warriors. Pyromancer started up by the Ferryman, but Sot's going up into the air. Sot's coming to dunk it down, and wants a little more, not able to find too much after the CC. The damage is there. The Pyromancer still taking damage, finally gets dropped. and will heal. Engage from both teams, available at the drop of a hat, it feels like. The Warriors unable to get things going their way. Pyromancer picked back up for the Ferryman, but the kill goes the way of the Warriors. They take out a Roar at the cost of a Runic Bomb. That's now on Cyclone Spin's belt. Now they're going to start pushing with an enhanced minion wave. Right down mid, they take tier 1. Wall, double tap, not there for Sot. But it does not matter. They've got plenty of room for Pagon and Netroid and plenty of damage to take a tier 2.
Yep, tier 2 tower goes down. Oni Fury is also dropped, which means those minions will push forward. They help grab the tier 2. Probably just get dealt with over on left and right. But that's the value of that Anvil of Dawn. We saw it finally. SOT says, hey, we'll get the Fury. I'll walk over just a couple steps. Then I'll be able to ult and disrupt the Pyromancer pull. Doesn't end up actually disrupting that Pyromancer pull, but you get the pick onto a Roar, and that's enough to open up the map for the free tier 2 tower. Pagon, first one over to level 20. Netroid follows soon after, which means farm-wise, the Oni Warriors are feeling just fine in the XP department, unless you look over at the 3-level deficit between SOT and Baskin. This Robin has been a continued threat. Just in lane, of course, and then being able to rotate in towards these carries. But I think the Pagon survived pretty well. I mean, Baskin got to the backline a bit. He didn't use the ultimate, wasn't really trying to full commit towards that kill. But with the sustain from Asa and Jake from that extra healing, didn't seem like the Robin poke was too bothersome. Maybe if Cyno and Baskin and Cyclone Death from above all towards the carry, that could be a little different. But if it's just Baskin diving the backline, seems like the carries of the Oni Warriors can just shrug that off.
Originally, I don't know why I lulled myself into the security thinking, oh, maybe we'll see a fight around a fire giant sometime soon. No, there's no neutral objectives. Nothing crazy to fight over.
We did double our kills, though.
We have, you know what? We passed that threshold.
Yep.
6 now, 24 minutes in. And just a little longer until the beacon comes back for the third and final time. Titans will spawn. At this rate, in left, after it gets captured. We've seen the Ferrymen get point 1 and 2. But it looks like the beacon this time in control right now of the Warriors. So a little bit of pressure can go a long way. Map state, tier 1s, all knocked down on the side of the Ferrymen with the tier 2 and mid gone. Tier 1 and tier 1 for solo and mid gone for the Warriors right now. And that's where the towers lie. Gold lead. Still just shy of 1,000 in favor of the Ferryman. So the beacon opens up. Warriors had to cede their position. Ferryman in control of that one. 3/4 already for the Warriors step up. Panatom and Cyno fighting in the jungle, but Cyno's got a little more backup right now, and that forces the ult from Panatom. Ferryman able to use the opportunity, the opening, to capture the beacon and maybe catch someone off guard. Jake double dashes, disengages, and gets out of there. Titans will be spawning in left. Ferrymen get all 3 buffs, and they feel more than happy with the space on the map they have.
Yeah, that's interesting because the Oni Warriors certainly had the aggressive positioning. They sat there waiting for the Ferryman to step forward. But someone sniffed something out. Someone knew Cyno was nearby and was not revealing himself. I believe it was the ward he placed behind the beacon. And so Panatom said, all right, let's back up. There's a rat behind us. Let's go find him. You know, he's got to be around here somewhere. By the time that Panatom actually sniffs him out, takes a little bit too much damage, was afraid of Paul finishing off that kill, and has to use the Grand Joust defensively to ult away. And after you lose your land soul before the beacon even begins sieging, you're probably just going to end up giving that one up. So the Oni Warriors do just that. And now the Titans get to run it up left with the Primal Fury still here. Could be an objective that both of these teams are after. Could be a fight over the Titans just to see who's able to push out on top. But with both junglers in mid and Awesome Jake there as well, it seems like the Styx Ferrymen are the only ones who are trying to get aggressive with their Titan, unless you count Netroid pushing by himself.
Well, Sot is now joined the fray, gone up to the air, comes dunking down, finds 2, and gets some follow-up damage, but it's onto the front line. Not a lot to stick, but it does not matter when you've got the team around you to burn through Aurora's health bar. A little more damage, and the kill goes the way of the Warriors. Now 3-4, and pushing with their Titan. They want a little more. Chasing down Cyclone. Not going to look too helpful for them. So instead, turn back, take down the Chaos Titan, let your own start to push, you know what, Trelly, why not go for the Primal Fury since you have the advantage over on left?
You do have the advantage while the Titan pushes down. Sino's going to be close by, though, and here is Paul, still having that crushing wave. But it does not seem like something that the Styx Ferrymen want to step forward to try and defend. They don't want to lose their lives for a 27-minute Primal Fury, so they will retreat and head over towards the right side of the map. Both Titans get driven back, and that's pretty much the end of this scrap so far. It's so interesting because things like the beacon, the Oni Warriors just don't want to commit to. But things like fights here, they're down to try and just force something from Baskin, get the Mystic Rush down. He was never really in danger, but did not want to lose half of his health bar. Pyromancer starts up. They should be free, going the way of the Oni Warriors as well, which means they get a Runic Bomb in pocket. But Enhanced Fire Giant. I say enhanced because I do not believe it's going to be pulled in the next two and a half minutes. It's probably the next contention point where we're going to see a little bit of scrapping. I mean, I haven't seen Sino ult aggressively in a while. Paul, I haven't seen a crushing wave in quite some time either. Styx Ferrymen have been showing up to the beacons and winning out, but everything else seems to be going in the way of the Warriors.
And I think, and again, the gold charts really kind of reflect that maybe the best. It has just been a little bit in favor of the Ferrymen, stripped away. A little bit in favor of the Ferrymen, stripped away. And you have to note, sometimes it can get eclectic, right? If we were looking at this the same place last game, that number that the line is at is 3,000, maybe 4,000. That was 1,500. It has not been massive leads for either side. And even right now, it is about as even as it can get. You have to keep your eyes on Pagon, where the damage is going to be. Sino not able to get the knock up of Pagon. Still burned down by the Ferryman. Paul, though, answered in return. That is mid for mid. Warriors still hanging around. Sino has nothing to get away with. Uses the stun. What kind of follow-up does Sai have? Wall's good, but it's not able to chase them down. It's a 4-on-4, but the Warriors are getting low. Have to back away. Same can be said for the Ferryman. Mid laner's gone, not back for another 38. And Trelly, that puts another pause, leans us closer to that EFG you were talking about.
Yep, both relics down from both mid laners, so Paul and Pagon have to play just a bit safer whenever they decide to step forward. But it seems like besides that, Sino had to use everything just to confirm that kill. And the Oni Warriors, looking towards Awesome Jake, also are missing relics. But besides that, not the biggest deal. I think one pick onto your mages isn't so bad, but the second pick, that's going to be the big deal here. If Pagon and Paul step a little bit too far forward, or if they're not able to stay alive, that could open the doors for the EFG. That first pick, because it was mirrored on both sides. Not the end of the world. No one felt confident enough to go in for an Enhanced Fire Giant without that magical damage. But it all starts with Awesome Jake and Pagon stepping a little bit too far forward to ward in the actual pit. And if you look, the Styx Ferrymen just sort of went from behind, exactly where Aurora is now. There's no ward coverage there. The Oni Warriors were not aware of that play. And already a similar grouping is happening, not towards the Fire Giant, but towards the backside of Solo Lane. Pagon cannot be the first one to walk up, because that doesn't seem like a good idea, especially with both relics down.
Seems like something, yeah, honestly, inadvisable for a Merlin in general. Like, just a general rule.
Time to ride.
The Warriors are playing it a little more cautiously. Ward's there now. Should be able to at least spot a little bit of it. Jake caught out. Dashes forward. Sot's looking for Paul. Unable to get the wall down. And Sino's up into the air. Looking for Pagon. Finds Solar Troll. But isn't able to get the knock up nor the stun. And instead, it's a retreat from the jungler on the Ferryman. Still a little aggressive for the Chaos team. But nothing too surefire for them here, Trelly, as they try to play up around the FG pit. And you called it 3 minutes ago, and you were right. It will be an Enhanced Fire Giant before we see it go down. With this kind of positioning, maybe started by the Ferryman soon, but ward coverage, fight coverage, and specifically ult/relic economy right now has fights going topsy-turvy.
Yep, I mean, that all starts with just a hammer out from SOT. You could tell that Jake was trying to get aggressive, ends up dashing, finding the root on a Sino, and I thought he was ulting defensively, but actually wanted to get aggressive. He knew his beads were down, so decided to use that through the Cosmos, land on Sot. Good Berserker's Barrage to immune it, but couldn't find the stun. That was the unfortunate part. If you pull the beads there from SOT, it's worthwhile for the Ferryman, but just get a double down there from the ultimates. And now Oni Fury has spawned back in. Pyromancer just touched down. That Enhanced Fire Giant, still the target that neither team wants to pull, likely because there's not too much damage for it. Remember, There's no crit junglers, there's no crit ADCs. In this case, Cyclone Spin does a lot less damage than even Netroid would be able to towards that objective. So it's going to take a while for either one of these teams to even go in for a pull confidently. That's why we see fight attempts, right? Stuns, just trying to force ultimates, any sort of CC, like a pull a relic before the engagement begins. And that Oni Fury is a bit risky. It's so far away from EFG. If you send even 2 members of your team over to that objective, you could be losing your advantage towards fire.
Well, Pyromancer goes the way of the Warriors. They pick up the Runic Bomb for Sot. And Trelly, just a quick rundown. Right now, Jake, unfortunately, the only one not quite level 20. The build's being finished. We just saw Soul Reaver pick up from Paul, so if you were thinking he was going to do a lot of damage, he's going to do even more. But finished builds, you had mentioned it, still semi-mirrored for the junglers. Not quite the full mirror, though. Maybe some sort of engage here. Sot goes up into the air, looks for Cyclone, doesn't find a dunk onto him or Paul, and the damage is there. Crushing Wave moved forward. Jake is the target for the Ferryman, but the fight is turning around. The Warriors are doing exactly what they need to push them back. Baskin has to go back to base. Paul is still able to pick up Jake, but it's going to cost him his life. Sot finds him in the blue buff, picked up by Aurora, fed to Cyclone Spin, is the Thor. And that makes things a little more equal. 2 for 1. Ferryman losing Paul, though. A big blow to their damage. But they get to stay aggressive. No, they get the damage onto Panatom backing under the tier 2. Cyclone finds himself a double, and what a massive opening for the Ferryman.
That's insane. That looked like a great fight for the Oni Warriors, but Paul just jukes for so long, stays alive just a bit too far. And now Styx Ferrymen have a chance to pull EFG. It's not going to be free, though. There's some low health bars here, and Netroid and Pagon are stepping forward. There's no ward coverage to spot them out. Are they going to commit to try and defend this? It looks like they will. They'll step forward.
Sometimes you've got to go for the steal. Pagon has gotten at least one FG steal with a Divine Ruin proc while on Merlin in the past. Does not have the Divine Ruin, just has to do it with the old-fashioned damage. Doesn't seem like he's willing to commit too hard. Relics are down right now for him. Uses the flicker to dodge outside. I knows damage, turns it around with the help of Netroid and kills the jungler in the blink of an eye, but takes so much in the process.
Aurora's
and he goes down, but Aurora melted with the help of the Warriors. And now Sot's looking for a little more. Double tap should be good. The follow-through on the Cyclone Spin will not be there. Pagon dies, but stops the Fire Giant, and the team helps pick up 2 on the retreat.
And that's the hero play, but it's confusing because you see Sino go in. His sole job is to zone there. He's built so tanky, but still Pagon just one-shots him. I mean, he gets absolutely 1v1 by a mage every day of the week, so he's just trying to live up to the physical damage dealers, it seems. Pagon does exactly what he needs to. Says, hey, I'm probably going to die, but they won't be able to go in for EFG. And now who goes for the pull? The Oni Warriors. Sino and Pagon gone, and Aurora is down for 20 seconds as well.
This is where things can be a little hairy, right? Merlin is a lot of the burn here. This Fire Giant's dead already. If Pagon's alive, 10 seconds until he's back. An enhanced Fire Giant for all 5 would be massive, but you've got 3
2 Runic Bombs
still hanging around. 2 Runic Bombs for secure. Baskin coming around the side looking for the fight. Ferryman get the Fire Giant away from the Warriors, and now they surge forward. They've got the damage. Paul has to play carefully. Cyclone as well. Sot's up in the air. There's no way he's coming crashing down. You lose the FG, you lose the fight, and you might lose a little more. No, Panatom gets the disengage just in time. But an unfortunate tumble for the Warriors here. And Trelly, 35 minutes in, the first Fire Giant goes down, and the Ferrymen have an advantage.
A stray auto attack from Cyclone Spin, enough to confirm the EFG through 2 Runic Bombs. Ridiculous. Now the Oni Warriors are on the back foot. Have to go in for the defense. All Pagon did to try to set themselves up for victory does not end up paying off. But the Oni Warriors charge forward. They recognize the Oni Fury was likely where the Styx Ferrymen were. They show up just a little bit too late and don't look for the engage. Remember, even last game, when the Oni Warriors were down, they were getting aggressive. They were pushing. They were going for Phoenix. I don't think it's the smartest call, considering they're down decent in gold. Not the biggest deal, but the enhanced Fire Giant buff just means you leave a wave for a second, and that Phoenix could be gone. A tier 2 tower as well. So the Oni Warriors are going to stay near base, try and defend. They've got Merlin for wave clear. They've got Netroid for tank tread. They've got options if they want to just sit underneath Phoenix and Turtle. I know it's not the quintessential Oni Warriors play style, but unfortunately it's something they're going to have to adapt to.
Quintessential Oni Warriors play style, though. I feel like we haven't gotten to really see it so far. I mean, we've had, at this point, almost 80 minutes of gameplay from them. And it's felt like every time they want to get aggressive, even in those moments that feel like, okay, here's the Warriors, here they are to fight, the Ferrymen have just gotten the better end of the trade. Whether it's Paul's damage on the set last time, the Hebo this time, a roar with Peel, Baskin just being Baskin on Robin. Like, he hadn't even had to do anything, he just survives. And it feels like it's really stifled their style and slowed them down to the point where the Ferrymen are dictating the pace of the game every step of the way.
And they are stepping forward. They're going to grab that tier 2 tower over and left. Looking in for the left side bird is the call. And remember, they've got 2 runic bombs. Sino's got 1 in pocket and Cyclone Spin as well. If they can actually get towards the Phoenix and they don't get destroyed, it should almost certainly go down. But the Oni Warriors have the defense opportunity. Sot's got Anvil of Dawn so we can go between both. But look at this, just mid-Phoenix left alone. That's going to drop.
Yeah, and you have one of the runic bombs over there. Makes it super easy for them to engage. The CC doesn't connect from the Warriors, and the Ferrymen crack open the base right in the middle. 2 now, focus over towards right. Sino's looking for a second Phoenix. Aurora is going to lose his life, but it is going to cost another bird and some pressure as Sino continues to control the right side of the map. Warriors surge forward out of the base. But Trelly, there's nothing here for him. Nobody's waiting. The Ferrymen fall back. They recognize that without a roar, they don't need to push too much more, and with a minion wave running into the Titan room now, the Ferrymen, blanket statement, this has been a successful Fire Giant.
Yeah, I mean, you get 2 Phoenixes, even though you lost a roar, you're pretty happy with that one. And the mid-Phoenix dropping is puzzling to me at best. Sino and Baskin are both sitting there, and just no one was defending mid-bird. It drops immediately, and of course, everyone heads over to left, like, oh man, they're going to split push. Sino says, I'll just go over to right. They say, all right, we'll get the kill. We'll stop the siege over on the left side of the map. We may lose right Phoenix. That's a risk we have to take. And they get a kill onto Aurora. Not the biggest deal. I think the 6 Ferrymen are very happy with the way that EFG went. They still have another minute 15 seconds with it as well. I don't think they try and set up for a push in the next minute and 12 seconds. It would take just about that much time to get towards the left Phoenix. But first EFG going down. I mean, you can't ask for a better one. I mean, you can try and win off that, but in a game this tightly knit, when the gold lead is not that massive, 6 Ferrymen are jumping for joy that they got 2 Phoenixes and Cyclone gets to hold on to his runic bomb.
I know Mifflin loves to talk about the fact that runic bomb range, not as massive, so it does, or as long, I should say, as like an auto attack. So definitely something that Cyclone, having it for sieges maybe, not the best case scenario. But you know what? Somewhere where you will stand a little closer than just auto attack range is the Fire Giant pit. And Secure has been a huge topic, I think, of conversation. So much so that the last time the Fire Giant was started by the Warriors, they wanted that fight. We thought with the runic bombs they had in pocket, that would be enough. Now the Ferrymen have that small advantage. 40 minutes in, Trelly. It's going to spawn in just a few seconds.
Wait, hold up. How much HP does Baskin have?
Too much.
I think it's at 4,000. Well, that with the shield,
with
of course.
The shield.
Yeah, with the shield, of course. Okay. I thought it was 4,100 and then the shield, and I'm like, that's not okay. But still, 4,100 with the shield, and he can rebuild that while he's fighting on top of Pridwin. And Baskin gets this pick again. Make it make sense, Gore.
Well,
that's not your job. That was rude of me. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm trying to make it make sense, and I just can't figure it out, man. They left me at a pause. You know what? I think I can make it make sense. It gets banned next game. That's my prediction for the future at this point. He's 006, right? If you're looking at it just kill-wise, maybe it's not that big a deal.
Well, in one more assist, he becomes really cool.
He does become really cool with just one more assist.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that happens. But remember, 2 birds are down. The Oni Warriors have to scramble back mid lane, back over to right to try and keep these waves pushed up. And the 6 Ferrymen just siege forward, uncontested. Whoever they look at has to run away. They have no fear.
If I have 4,100 health with a shield, I'm running at them any time of the week, man. There's no reason not to. I mean, Panatom's got a little shield going for him as well. And Jake's got a good amount of health working their way.
What's that? 3,600? What are we doing here? Is that even a shield? Does he even get protections from that? I'm not buying it. If it doesn't have a 4 at the front, I'm not worried. But the Oni Warriors have stalled this out. Their plan was, hey, we have 2 birds down. If we can sit here and just do nothing long enough, we won't have to worry about fire minions. And so far, that has been the call. The Styx Ferrymen realize they've got 1 to 2 more waves left before they have no more advantage on the map, and they're going to start up the EFG. Baskin, sole member of the Ferrymen on zone duty, while Sino runs it down mid and just tries to grab a free Phoenix.
At this rate, he's going to grab a free Phoenix. He's got a fire minion wave, needs someone to retaliate in a very, very emphatic way. And it seems like they're just going to send 2 kind of over there to try and defend. Fire Giant started up, sought a little bit of damage here or there, forced. Presumably, no, not into the ultimate, just over the wall. Has to use the beads, though. And a dangerous game to be playing if you're the Warriors there. Has his teleport. Should be able to reset, no problem. And no immediate pressure onto the Fire Giant.
Yep, Paul gets a little poked out. Everyone decides to commit over towards SOT. The Styx Ferrymen step forward, but they do end up pulling the beads off of this Thor. I hate to bring it up again, but we're 42 minutes into the game. This game 1 was ended off of a beautiful blink from Sino onto SOT on this Thor pick, catching him out when he didn't have beads up last game. Of course, last game he didn't even build beads, but this time 2 minutes without that relic. You gotta think that he has to watch his positioning here. Pre-ult, any sort of stun that comes his way. And even if he does that, Paul's nearby. Might not guarantee that he makes it up into the air. But the Styx Ferrymen have lost their 1 big advantage. I guess 2 big advantages if you call both of those birds being down. The Oni Warriors have been able to stall out to make sure the map state is better in their favor. And now they're stepping up. They're walking forward. They want the fight. The Oni Warriors are not a team to play passively. And they've been playing very passively for the past, I would say, 8 minutes.
3K pot for Sino was just bought on his last back, so expect a lot of damage on the horizon. I also saw a ton of power potions across the board. So, you have to be... I think... Charlie, I'll ask you. Do you need to be aggressive if you're the Warriors here? I mean, the way things have been going, you're now 6,000 gold down when prior to that, the largest it had ever been was 2K. Are you the team that can choose the fight, or do you have to retaliate against the Ferrymen when they engage?
You definitely have re-engage opportunity. You don't have to be the one to pull. In fact, I think whichever team actually pulls the objective has at a bit of a disadvantage. Like, think about it. Even if Paul crushing waves and confirms EFG, you don't want to lose Paul after, right? That's sort of been the mindset. If you drop anything this late into the game, could just be over. But I've been watching Sino a lot, and his positioning has been annoying for the Oni Warriors to deal with. Close to Phoenix, trying to push forward. Now he's behind Panatom, and it seems like Panatom doesn't even know just yet. This Ratatosker has been just trying to make sure that these waves are pushed up, trying to drive some of the Warriors off that EFG to open up some doors for his team. And Pyromites are spawning back in here soon. 3 runic bombs, possibly in the pocket of the Ferryman if they're able to confirm this one. And that is, I'll say usually uncontested confirm towards an objective.
Sometimes it is the nuke you need to drop on a Phoenix to just absolutely open it up. You don't have to worry about it. If 3 runic bombs go down, you should have that one under control. But it is not looking like it'll be that way, Trelly. Pyromancer confirmed instead by the Warriors. They balance out a little bit of the runic bomb control. Poor Primal Fury over on left. Nobody even looks over there. Considers it. And it's for good reason. Enhanced Fire Giant 45 minutes in could be a huge deal. You had said the team that goes for the pull could be at a disadvantage. And it is the Warriors who have stepped up to try and get this objective. They're not going for the burn. They're going for the bait. Unfortunately, SOT takes a little bit too much poke. They don't get the bite they want, so the Warriors back away and give up the space.
And this is what I brought up last game, right? If you're Thor, your engage without ult is not great. Baskin walks up with the help from Sino, pulls the beads, half health SOT, sends him back to base. SOT caught them off guard. He was the one who walled. He just doesn't have that same level of poke. It has to be Anvil of Dawn. He can't just step forward and be a menace in the jungle like Baskin can. Now Awesome Jake is attempting to create that fight, but he already double dashed and he's pretty deep in the jungle.
Might find some trouble here. Sino immediately goes towards Netroid. Take some damage. In fact, it's going to be the fight that the Warriors want. They have him isolated. They just need a little more damage, and the auto from Pagon is what kills off the jungler for the Ferryman. Now a 5v4, and look at Panatom, look at Pagon, look at Jake. They wanted the loop around. They wanted the fight. But instead of finding that, they'll find the one kill that might be necessary to get them an enhanced Fire Giant. Now Paul, still alive, still has ult. Cyclone
Gotta be a
still
bait.
has a Runic Bomb. And they're going to have to play carefully. Panatom has the ult. Sot as well. Able to go up into the air at any point in time. Fire Giant slowly burning down. Panatom wants the fight. The fight's coming to him, and he has to use his ult to disengage. Sot goes deep. Sot finds Paul, looks for damage, forces the beads, and makes Paul retreat, keeping them in a 5v4 advantage, but health bar is starting to get a little shaky for the Warriors.
They certainly are. Pagon's going to take a lot of damage here from Aurora, and it seems like the Ferrymen are able to siege forward even without Cyno. I was saying gotta be a bait, and I wasn't saying that wasn't a prediction. That was a fact. They could not commit towards that enhanced Fire Giant. You get the beads off of Paul, he goes back to base and buys an elixir of defense. Paul is just making sure that he will survive until the end of these engagements or die trying. And he's got himself even more protection now. Cyno is back on the map here in 2 seconds. Should be able to make it to EFG quickly. And think about the relics that were just used there. The only Warriors, they've got just about everything. They lost beads on net and SOT. But the Styx Ferrymen, they're the ones who had to get pretty aggressive. And Baskin, I think, was aggressed upon. I can't tell. The shield didn't get touched.
Yeah, and honestly, even when it does, like you said, he just charges it back up in the middle of the fight, man. It does not seem to be affected. Still hasn't gotten that one assist yet, though. So some room to grow for Baskin, though not much of it. Pagon is the shred damage this team needs right now. 25,000, matching what Baskin has been able to output. And by and far, the furthest ahead for his team. A necessity in these fights, and Paul might be the target for them. Sot locks him down for a little bit, but unable to get the massive damage they need. The dump is on to Cyclone Spin. Sot goes into the backline as well. It does not feel like a confident fight. They finally come together. They kill off Cyclone, but they lose Netroid in the process. Ferryman surge forward. Slows coming from Paul. Damage is still there, but no ult. And I think that's going to be the retreat. Cyno too low to fight. Jake, healing can only get you so far. Baskin scoffs at the damage. They need a little more CC to lock him in, but finally, they shut him down, and finally, they get this kill, and that one is going to roll over into the Warriors as they pick up Aurora there after 3, gone for 70 on the Ferryman. Just Netroid paid for it.
Yeah, but Cyno is following around Panatom looking for, I guess, a 1v1, good wall and good eye by SOT just to make sure that the Ratatosker can't do anything. They don't have Netroid for 33 seconds, Gore, and that means no Fire Giant. It's time to push in for a possible Phoenix, but Crushing Wave is back up. This is not going to be as easy as walk in and auto down the Phoenix.
Have to be careful. You have to decide how you're going to tank it. Minion Wave is there, so backdoor protection's gone. You need some autos. And Trelly, this is where that one Stygian Beacon they were able to get earlier is actually going to be pretty helpful in sieging down the mid Phoenix. 2 were cracked for the Warriors earlier.
They want the bait.
And they wanted a little more. Paul has to use his ult, then the cripple field, the jump in. Panatom is locked in for the kill, but not able to find it. Doesn't have the damage. Instead, it's the turnaround from Cyclone and Cyno to make sure things go awry for the Warriors. Sot now 2 deep and 2 gone on the side of the Warriors. Double kill for Cyclone Spin. The bait, they thought they were pulling Paul out, but Paul pulls them in. And the Ferrymen set up in a great position. Aurora will be respawning as Jake goes down. A triple for Cyclone and a wide open field for the Ferrymen.
And now Netroid and Pagon have to try and defend their base. It doesn't look like an EFG is in the opportunity here for the Ferrymen either. They're going to siege forward. Can they go in for the end? In the next 42 seconds, they're certainly going to try. Relic-wise, Pagon has beads. His Aegis will be up in 15. Same for Netroid. Beads are available. And it's just the Aegis they are lacking. But trying to keep this Titan alive is not going to be easy.
Have to rely on the Merlin damage. It's top of the charts for a reason. This Phoenix, forfeit. 20 seconds for Panatom. A lot of pressure on the Warriors to try and hold here, but they might not even have the time. Damage seems to be good from the Ferryman. Pagon's looking for a lot. He's trying to trade him out, trying to get him low. He gets rid of Sino, but he cannot save the Titan. And now 2-0 up are the Ferrymen. And Trelly, they put themselves on set point.
And this is what I was talking about from the beginning. Ease of execution. They get so much damage on Nepal, but how does SOT go in to confirm the kill? He misses the hammer. He misses the Anvil of Dawn. It's so much high execution. And there's different picks available.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like the Thor is that first pick, first ban. We need to grab this, especially when Baskin gets a pick like Robin 2 games in a row now. It just seems like the Warriors are making it harder than they need to. Of course, the Ferrymen stalled out that game to 50 minutes very well. It was very back and forth. The gold lead was never one side or another.
Yeah.
But I think from picks and bans, you can make your job, your engage, your defense so much easier.
It's backs against the wall now for the Warriors. Long games for Game 1 and Game 2. They're going to need to change things up if they want to stay alive in this, if they want to keep that undefeated record alive. Might all come down to the next game. We'll find out right after this.
Drum on the rail, I wrap it, I bag it, I pack it for sale. Got feeling on speed out, it hit me to chill. I give it a thrill, I put it on film. Facade get applaud, that ain't real. Come to my section and flex, we can tell. I got a show where she dipping them nails. I'm flipping my L's, I know they can tell. I did it too major, they hit me for favors. Been him since the cable was cut in the cradle. What's up, only right that I do it. Colossal until I'm a boss, so they want me to fail. Look, we prevail. Jump on your tail. Know that they talking, they telling them tales. Just know how to tell, that for the sale. Hey, they talk like they got it, but they need to stop it. I'm leading with logic, my heartbeat is frosted. I seen it, got optics I needed from Shawty. She mean with the top and it's obvious. They need him a target, I'm dodging their darts, make them reach for the stars. I'm dumping, I'm forcing the pun off the runs. I'm moving with caution, I'm saucing my nigga is nothing. From nothing to something they'll never be. Tycoon and I'm Dre with the thizzle face. I'm nothing my section has ever seen. Run the ice so I'm clutch, I don't need a screen. I'm Curry, I push it from 30 deep. Do the pin in the pad like a surgery. She the curve at you just to flirt with me. Totally tucked off, but the jewels out. I just in a home with a full mouth. I'm a rare breed when the moon out. I'ma stop playing by the rules now. I been ran plays, need a new route. Queen said she needs space in a new house. Mom told me that she pray for the kid every day. No wonder I'm getting paid for the tunes now. It ain't ass, bitch, I'm on the rail. I wrap it, I bag it, I pack it for sale. Got feeling on speed out, I hit me to chill. I give it a thrill, I put it on film. This facade get applaud, that ain't real. Come to my section and flex, we can tell. Really outside with it. Run with it. Run with it. Run with it.
Plain on my wrist, for real. LV on my chick, for real. Waco taking risks, for real. Went through hell to get to this, for real. I'm not puzzle making lists, for real. I stay low and stack my chips, for real.
the Styx Ferrymen are now one game away from not only being your SMITE Summer Masters champions, but also one game away from dethroning the Oni Warriors' undefeated streak. And here in game number 2, Mifflin, it went pretty much as expected as far as the discussion on the desk was. The Oni Warriors needed to get off to an early start to really get this Lancelot rolling. Didn't quite get the early start that the Warriors were hoping for. In fact, it was the Ferrymen who started out with a bit of early lead. But it's, again, getting to these late games, once we're at 35, 40 minutes, waiting for these defenses and trying to get these sieges moving forward and getting those team fights around the Fire Giant. At least for the Oni Warriors, they almost had it there for a moment. They got it down to just 2, Sino and Paul. But Paul's just a little too slippery, just a little too tanky. Is able to live out and bait just enough time for his team to respawn and come back for the win.
And then even barring that ability to stall out the game, even in the majority of the team fights here, I just felt like the Oni Warriors were really struggling to secure kills, to buy space, to buy time. And I think it is largely rooted in composition. I just don't love how that Lancelot was performing. I know it's not the ugliest slash line on the planet, but it just wasn't quite enough from Panatom, especially considering the conversation around Panatom all year has been this guy's like the best. He is the best. He's diffing everybody. He's getting active early on. He's making plays. He's creating space. He's killing people on his own. Not in this game. Not this time around. The Lancelot just wasn't it. The Styx Ferryman had answers every single time. And how often did we see Panatom try and mount up and then immediately water hands? Oh, by the way, now you're off your horse and slowed and easier to kill and easier to chase down. It was frequent. It's just very difficult for that Lancelot to make anything happen when the Styx Ferryman are also playing some of their best Smite. Sino, legacy performance from him. One of his best performances so far this year. That Ratatasker off to a very fast start. Starts off 2-0, does not slow down his pressure, matches up with just about everybody else. Doesn't get any more kills afterward, but utilizing that global presence, able to dive into that back line or play front to back and peel out for his allies. Aurora, always there to apply defense shred when needed. Cyclone spin, 7-1-4. Slash lines don't often tell the whole story, but it does here because he does so much for his team. Styx Ferryman, they're playing possessed right now. And it's even just like the people, the actual Ferryman, the players themselves. You see Aurora and Paul walking through the hallways. I mean, I said it to you. You can't get a word in. These guys are locked in, stone-faced. Paul's not just gaming anymore. These guys are here to win.
Yeah, I mean, normally even, going in between games, I could walk by Aurora or somebody else like that, one of the more charismatic guys, say, hey, it was a good game. You go, yeah, it was all right. We had a couple of mistakes, this or that. He walked by, I said, hey, it was a good game from you. He just kept going. He just ignored everything. He is dialed in, focused up. When you get back and just listen to him and even just watch him communicating with the team, you can see he's directing his attention towards one player at a time, making sure that each person knows what they did right, what they did wrong, even getting a chance to sit back and even watch that game with the coach. I actually had reels by me on the couch for at least the later half of that game. And he was telling me about just some of the general improvements that were made from their set yesterday to today when they've been getting some of those advantages out there. So the improvements of the Styx Ferryman on the day-to-day, game-to-game basis has been at least an amazing sign of improvement for these guys. And seeing what they can now do going into game point for themselves, match point, finals point at that. One game away from Masters. Could all come down to the drafts. I think the Oni Warriors, for me, the immediate thing I would want to see change from the Oni Warriors, you got to get Baskin off this Robin. He feels like the most unkillable person on the planet on this pick. 2 games in a row, I think Baskin has died maybe twice on this selection.
Baskin's doing too much, but Woon Young Kim feels unstoppable on just about everything that he does, doesn't he? That guy creates so much space, holds his own in every single lane, and is going to make a stamp on the team fight regardless. For me, I think the Oni Warriors need to look a little bit more so inward than out as opposed to outward. Let's adjust some of our own draft. First things first, Panatom off of Lancelot. That's where I'm at. As well as I just want to see SOT on something a little bit more standard. That Thor performance, it ain't doing it for me.
There were a couple of instances in that game, specifically one that I can immediately call out where he walls off thinking, okay, I'm going to wall everybody away from Jake. And then he walls off Jake instead. Jake dies. There's a little bit of laughs from SOT. Jake's a little bit stone-faced.
Jake was
there.
not laughing.
He was not happy about that one, and I think even some of the fans are kind of like, it seems like we hit a little bit of the troll aspect of Solar Troll's name in this instance. But I got to agree, man. Panatom's just such a good Thor player. Seeing him on this kind of selection would be so great. Maybe just away from the Thor first pick in general. Because, I mean, sure, Bass can go to Thor, but if Robin's going to be available, it feels like Robin is just going to be the step up, at least for Baskin in that solo lane. So maybe see if an adjustment gets made over there in the solo lane on both of these teams could be a step forward for the Oni Warriors.
And even going further into it, Thor into Raven is a miserable matchup for
Not
Thor.
fun.
It is just really hard to get anything rolling. Any direct lane opponent up against Thor that is known for boxing in lane. If it's another soul laner that just wants to fight you constantly and has some form of sustain on their side, Thor's going to struggle. You're not going to be allowed to rotate out because you're going to be down to about 50% all the time, always chugging potions, always trying to just stay alive or grab yourself 1 or 2 totems or maybe grab 1 bit of neutral farm. So, if the option is leave Thor available after first pick and you're worried that Baskin's going to take it, Baskin probably will. He's very good on that pick. You at least have some counter selections, and SOT now can say, hey, well, I'll take the Robin myself. You know, I know it was miserable for me, but I'm also an incredibly good player, one of the highest caliber players in the league. I could take the counter matchup and play it just as well. There are certainly options.
I wonder how the bans change up more than anything, because for games 1 and 2, it's been Oni Warriors' first pick. They've been going out and they say, all right, we want Thor as our first pick. They've been banning out, I believe, is Ganesh, Hebo, and Hell, or Ganesh, Set, and Hell. So Hebo and Set, the only ones interchanging, at least on those ones. But that's from the first pick slot. That allows them to then get that Thor, gives over a couple selections. The Marty, probably not something that I'm immediately jumping out saying, oh, you got to ban the Marty. You can't let the Marty, be given over to the opposite side there. But I wonder now, moving into second pick slot, if some things get left open for them. Because you look at what the Ferrymen have been banning. It's been Horus. It's been Jormungandr, banned away by those guys. So now that we see the roles reversed for picks and bans, now that we see the Ferryman in that first pick slot versus the Oni Warriors now in that second pick slot, I wonder what adjustments get made, specifically probably by the Warriors for these bans.
Yeah, I wonder. Do the Warriors need to change up their bans too much? I would probably still keep shooting my shots at Paul, right? Don't let him get some of his signatures, but that doesn't change based on selection. I think more so bans are going to stay the same. Picks probably see a little bit of an adaptation.
We'll see what those adaptations are. Game number 3, match point. And the grand finals now up for grabs for the Styx Ferryman, up 2-0 to the Oni Warriors. Hasn't dropped a single set during the kickoff tournament, the regular season of play, and the first 2 rounds of Masters. The Oni Warrior have gone unscathed in sets, have lost individual games here and there, but this is the first time we have seen in a setting like this, in a best of 5, where these guys have dropped more than 1 game of their set. Styx Ferrymen, they're going to keep to their same bans so far, Horus and Sun Wukong, but Jormungandr's still left open. I wonder if maybe they're trying to bank on the Oni Warriors banning that one away, so that way they can have a free pick or a free ban for themselves. See if maybe they can leave that Yorm open for Baskin in the soul lane, or the Warriors going to ban it out. Ganesh has not been banned this time by the Warriors. It's been the Hell and the Set, but Styx Ferrymen, they'll take the Yorm out, not willing to take the risk on leaving that one up.
So now it's on the Oni Warriors. Onus belongs to them. Are you concerned about Ganesh? Aurora's gone on record in saying that this is the year of Ganesh. That god is just incredible. Every time I see him in game, it astounds me how much value Dharmic Pillar gets, even on whiff. You could whiff it completely and still someone's going to have to walk through it if you're in the jungle, or someone's going to have to walk around it and adjust their pathing, or maybe they're diving to the back line and you could whiff your silence. Okay, well, everybody around you still just got a whole lot of protections on your team. That god has also got pretty decent burst potential. That first ability, the Turn of Fate, very, very strong. The lockdown, single target from the dash, remove obstacle, still very good. But it won't be a Ganesh lock-in. That has completely thrown me for a loop. I was certain the Styx Ferryman would go for it in the first slot. Instead, it's Martikaras. Flexibility, could go mid, could go ADC, opens the door to a double hunter composition. We've seen the Ferryman use it as the sole hunter. Generally, cycle and spin, likes to hover in lane, play pretty safe, rotate into the team fight, utilize death from above just to be the spotlight on tanks. Okay, you're diving my team, now you don't have defenses, good luck sticking around. Still a very strong pick. And in matches that are always going the distance, if we're always going over that 30-minute mark, those tall grass abilities, the ability to just create these stealth fields on map, especially around Fire Giant, around Goldfear, around Pyromancer, just makes it so difficult to realize where is safe and where isn't. Where are you allowed to stand when Martikaras is just shielding his entire team with invisibility?
So now maybe the most difficult decision for the Oni Warriors is what do they take in this top 2? I think this might be one of the biggest adaptations they make, is getting Baskin away from the Raven, drafting the Thor alongside it. Now opens up the question, Does this Robin go to SOT and solo? Now Baskin has to fight into a potentially miserable matchup. Does this Robin go into the jungle for Panatom? Gives him something he can be a bit more active on and gives SOT his third game in a row on the Thor. I think for my money's worth, I'd likely throw the Robin over into the solo lane, especially if you're going to be matching up against a Tyr. Would not be a fun match for Thor to have to go into. Ganesh and Tyr for the Styx Ferryman. This is a scary top 3.
Yeah, I mean, those are essentially the 3 first-in-slot picks for each of those players. Baskin's been playing a whole lot of Tyr. Aurora is the Ganesh guy, and Cyclone has gone towards Marty more often than not. But the Oni Warriors also have got themselves some pretty strong selections. Thor has been very viable. Robin, we saw what Baskin was capable of accomplishing. We'll see if SOT can do the same, and I hope it is SOT on that Robin. Panatom on Thor has been very good to the Oni Warriors throughout the regular phase. SOT on Thor has not been very good to the Oni Warriors, at least here today. But earlier, when we had seen the Hounds make this exact same pick from second pick position, it was Robin and Thor. They did flip it up a little bit, have Robin out of the jungle, Thor out of the soul lane. But I'm thinking with 2 games data, maybe we get SOT on something a little bit more standard.
So maybe see what Panatom can do on a pick like Thor. Second wave of bans with a Merlin drafted by the Oni Warriors, something safe and standard for Pagon. Had a decent performance on it in game number 2. No complaints seeing the Merlin back in his hands once more. But the Oni Warriors mix up their bans a little bit. Keeping the Ratatosker, banned from Sino, had a great performance on it last game. And Zhang Kui, something that Paul brought out, found mixed success with it as well in that mid lane spot. But the Styx Ferrymen, they're going to take shots back to Awesome Jake. Now 3 direct bans at him and taking the Ganesh away as a potential. Really? Sotera and Sobek. I mean, when you think about what Jake has been playing a lot of recently, if it's not the mage supports, these have typically been some of the selections that Jake has gone towards. Immediately, I'm still thinking, though, Yamoja's available if Jake wants to go that direction.
Aphrodite.
You still have Aphrodite. You still have Nox. I'm surprised we haven't seen the Nox come back, but maybe fallen a bit out of favoritism. Even so much for the mage supports. If Paul locks this in, and I have...
It's got to be a Cyclone Freya. I'll lose my mind if that's Paul.
Now, it should go to Cyclone, just because Freya and the duo has a little bit better of a time trying to live through there. Mid so
Farming's
unsafe
better.
for her. So much better access to immediate farm where it's a lot less contested. But man, when I think back to Paul's original career in the SCC and jumping up, this was a pick that he loved to go to. Personally, for me, I would love to see it there, but I think you're right to say Cyclone.
And you willed the Nox into existence, too. Got it. Night Terror has seen a nerf since last we'd seen Nox. Now does 10% less damage taken away from your enemy. God, I hate the wording on it.
10% less damage reduction.
There you go. That's what it does. Previously, when you hit someone with it, they would do 30% less damage. Now I believe it's down to 20%.
40 down to 30.
40 down to 30, excuse me. Let's get back to the meat and potatoes of it. Where's this Freya going? What does Freya do? Everybody knows what Freya does. Anyone that's been playing Smite for more than 2 years has remembered every now and then when Freya is at the top of the meta for at least a 2 or 3 week period, and it is damage. This god falls into damage. It just is ridiculous. It shreds anybody. I don't care how tanky you are. I don't care how much mitigation you've stacked up. She is going to burn through you in about 15 auto attacks, and she's going to have 2.5 auto attack speed. So, what does that mean for the Styx Ferryman and their power curve? Early game's going to be weak. Freya does not hold her own very well. She's got Valkyrie's Discretion for survivability. If things go crazy, she could use it for kill secure, but for the most part, I'm imagining we're using that to get back into our tower and back to base. So, where do you find the pressure throughout the early to act as that bridge pick? It's Erlong Shen. Rely on him to get things rolling, play it slow, keep it easy, scale up into that late game.
Well, I've got it a little easy for us here, Myth, thanks to our good friends in production. We do have the answers to where these gods are going.
Don't tell me it's Paul.
It'll be Marty in mid for Paul.
Yeah, that's
Freya
good.
over for Cyclone Spin. But on the other side, we were asking what about the Robin and the Thor? Robin going solo, Thor going jungle this time.
Ideal.
So now that we've kind of seen where these selections, now that we know where these are going, how do you feel about these compositions? Specifically, I think more than anything, how do you feel for the Oni Warriors in this matchup going into the Ferryman for Game 3?
I think the Oni Warriors need to play through early. I think Come late game, once Freya's spooled up and once Ganesh is just allowed to throw out the Dharmic Pillars, things are going to become very difficult in the 5-on-5 team fight, especially in jungle corridors. And so, can the Oni Warriors play through the early? Yes. They've got pressure in lane. Kill secure from Rama, means that any gank from this Thor that just pokes this Freya, Valkyrie's discretion, she floats away halfway across the map. You got Astral Barrage. Hit your shots, you should be able to secure the kill. Nox has got great single target lockdown, good pick-based composition here from the Oni Warriors. But in the late game 5-on-5, things become very difficult.
The Styx Ferrymen are one game away from a grand finals victory here in Summer Masters. The Oni Warriors have got to fight back and keep their undefeated streak alive. Can they do it in game number 3? Let's throw it to the casters.
Thank you so much, J-Mac and Mifflin, for what could be the last time. It is Gore, Trelly, and of course Doug with the window into the battleground as the Ferrymen 2-0 up over the Warriors. One game between them winning Masters, eliminating and ending the Warriors' win streak, and showing us that Aurora, Paul, Cyclone, Sino, you know what, add Baskin to the list at tournament time, just cannot be messed with. But Trelly, Twitch still leaning a little more, actually, this time in favor of the Warriors, 56-44, as opposed to last time's 50-50. Longer games is what we've experienced for the first two. Mifflin seems to think, and even declares, the Warriors need to play through the early. You tend to agree with this?
I think that I don't think they have to play, but they definitely should because their comp is better early, right? I mean, the double assassin is definitely going to lean towards the early aggression. Of course, SOT's only going to get better with time. Panatom, this Thor, we've seen what that pick can do, given that 20-minute part. But there's a reason Freya hasn't been played so much recently, and it's because there's a lot of tankier targets, there's a lot of dive in the meta. Of course, if you're going to 40 minutes, she will absolutely shred. But can she survive? How much damage will come from Panatom, SOT, the snipes from Netroid, might as well call it a snipe from Awesome Jake? That is the question. Can Cyclone Spin stay safe enough on this pick? With the help from Aurora, with the help from this Ganesh as Peel, to just try and stay alive in the back line. With double ADC, they're going to have plenty of objective shred. That's why we see Aurora pick up the Frenzy. There's a different compositions that can do this very well, but walk up to a Gold Fury, pop Frenzy, the Gold Fury's gone, repeat the process. Definitely a play style that the Styx Ferrymen can try to implement if they get online. It's just, can Cyclone Spin stay safe in the backline? It's not going to be easy.
Well, the big switch up for the Warriors, I think we need to talk about. Panatom, now on the Thor, something that has treated him kindly. And Sot, who will be on the Raven, that has given Baskin just a fierce look the last couple of games. Maybe something we'll have to put a pause on. It's a slow burn right now, but with the CC they have, the Warriors one auto away, and they don't even need it. The Shadow Lock does enough. First blood, a minute and a half in, right onto Ganesh.
I cannot tell you why Aurora was there. Like, why did he end up near Purple Buff? It just didn't seem like a place that a Ganesh should ever really be trying to hang out with. Sino getting run down by Panatom here, has to be worried as well. But giving first blood over to Awesome Jake, definitely a good start. I was talking about survivability for Cyclone Spin, now giving a kill over to a tanky target on the opposite side, as well as an assist to Netroid. Does not bode well for the Freya. This duo lane may have some struggles coming through in the future.
He gives first blood over to a lane that honestly maybe desperately needs it at this point for some control. Sino goes for a gank onto Sot. Immunity used. The pin not on the mark, and Panatom happens to be in the neighborhood. Sot just trying to buy time, finds the root, double tap, doesn't connect, but there's the hammer, there's the autos, and there's a second kill online for the Warriors, this time in right. Cyclone has to play careful in left, forced under the tower. And with this amount of pressure, the Warriors starting to feel a little bit better about how this game has started.
Yep, Baskin whiffs the Fearless there. That was the gank. If you hit the pin from Sino, which I guess he whiffed as well, then you get the Fearless, you get the kill. Does not end up landing, thanks to a good overhead kick by SOT. And that gank comes through. A snowball is beginning. This is what I was talking about. Do they have to play it through the early game? No, not necessarily. But should they? Definitely. The double assassin between Robin and Thor is going to be winning these trades early on up against the double warrior composition. It does end up working out in the favor of the Oni Warriors. At least in the credit for Cyclone Spin, doesn't end up losing his purple buff. I figured since Aurora got first blooded, there's going to be infinite pressure coming from Awesome Jake and Netroid, but not able to go in for that purple buff invade, so at least that's a good look for the duo lane so far.
You get to control your jungle. Yeah, Ganesh, you know, it goes back, I think it was in Season 7. We were doing a lot of conversations with some of the pros about different gods, and I distinctly remember every pro you asked about Ganesh, and they were just like, look, man, you're not locking Ganesh in for his levels 1 through 4. Like, that is not the reason he's over here. He might be okay, but if I see Ganesh Freya, Trelly, it's not for the pressure in duo lane. It's not for this early game. They say, you know what? We've gone to 50 minutes 2 games in a row. Let's go 50 minutes one more time, see what we can do there. Maybe they'll make it there. That purple buff, like you said, a small adjustment that's in their favor. Neutral camps have been a really big discussion over the last couple of games, and that's because normally we haven't been getting a lot of kills early on. So it has been cooldown buff, it has been shield buff, mid camps, eventually transitioning to, you know, your pyromancers, your gold furies, things like that. But for right now, small invades could be a huge deal. Thor, specifically for Panatom, it feels like if he can start getting a little more aggressive, if he can feel safe in the jungle, that could change a lot of the pace of game in favor of the Warriors.
Certainly could. Panatom's got Anvil of Dawn. Could try and get active somewhere that there's no beads available, somewhere like on a Sino. Catch him out in the jungle. Of course, Paul goes back to base. He still has that CC immunity available, so Marty not a great target, but even Aurora could be someone that you want to try and go for that ultimate.
Speaking of.
Yeah, I mean, SOT, like I said, he will do anything for the first totem. That is something that Baskin has picked up on, but Baskin's out of mana.
And Panatom has the dunk, has the wall, has the damage, and has the help from Sot to get a third one on the board for the Warriors. Trying to put on a clinic here in Game 3, showcase why they are undefeated this year, starting things up well. Now the fight's in the jungle. Panatom versus Sino, healing from the 9 turns blessing. Goes the way of the Erlong Shin, keeps him engaged just enough to make sure that Panatom won't be able to continue any sort of aggression. Blue buff will be spawning in soon, but it's a wall, it's a double tap, it's damage in the teleport as well, but not going to be able to stick around. Pin on the retreat from the Warriors, makes him play carefully, and just barely, Sino avoids being the 4th one on the board.
No way. Oh, man, I was going to say, I was holding my breath for that silence because Jake positioned it perfectly and Cyclone had already slowed the buff. It wasn't able to walk out of range of that silence, but luckily able to confirm his own purple buff. Off of a great ultimate over to right lane, Panatom finds the Anvil of Dawn. He's got Jotun, so that cooldown will be up relatively soon. I want him to keep finding those ultimates, you know. It's hard to look in duo lane considering how far back Cyclone and Aurora have to play. But Baskin has been getting forced out relatively consistently just because of how good Robin can be in a matchup like this. Up against someone like Tyr, who's behind, no less, should be able to find some easy poke. It's just the sustain that Baskin is going to have that may make it a bit more difficult, that power cleave. Can just heal you up to full. If you hit that 3 minions consistently every time your cooldowns are back up, it's kind of hard to find those opportunities. That's why blue buff's so important, right? Trying to take it away from Tyr so he can't just spam every single time he gets the chance. But that is all the fighting. See, for now, again, it's going to be very hard to try and force anything on a Cyclone spin. He's got Valkyrie's discretion, and he has not left anywhere near that tower line. I mean, for the entirety of this game, really, since Aurora got first blooded.
Actually, it's only been 3 kills, but it's almost just as much gold in the pockets of the Warriors right now. 2,600. Looking for a little bit more in terms of both. But early pressure, that's what we wanted to see, and it's what we are getting from the Warriors, and what we have come to expect for them when they find success. It's Panatom that I keep my eyes on, at least in terms of how aggressive he's playing. Deep wards, deep coverage. But like you said, not a lot of easy targets for him, especially since Paul, at this point, no ult, beads still up. A very unfortunate time for us to come back to mid, see that the wall and the double tap doesn't connect. So Paul doesn't even feel the slight bit of threat his way. And so, 8 minutes in, this has been a Warriors game so far.
Yep.
It's honestly fantastic for him to try and not get swept. The problem I'm starting to see, and we kind of had this discussion, the longer the game goes, things get better for the Ferrymen. We've already said that. I do want to ask, though, because we've get the hastened ring picked up for Cyclone Spin, and the ring builds, as of late, have not been crazy good, right, for a lot of these carries. Depending on whether or not the Warriors want to fight, it looks like they'll back off. So I guess the question is, what does a Freya build in this day and age? Like, do you still go for the rings, even though it's maybe not the best quote-unquote build that you could have, or do you build like the way I expect Pagon's going to be building?
No, you have to go for the rings. Attack speed is your only play. And, you're going to go for the Bumba Spear, try and get as much pen online, try and shred through this tanks. I'm just not convinced that Cyclone can survive the dive. Like, I get the play call here. You notice that the Oni Warriors, and I guess your team in particular, the tanks in the jungle, have been building more of a tanky style of build, and who shreds tanks better than Freya? But survivability is a big deal, and Valkyrie's Discretion is not as much of a get-out-of-jail-free card as something like, the Bifrost from Heimdall or an Airstrike from Jingwei. It's not going to get you over a wall. It's not going to cover much ground. You just go up into the sky and stall for a bit. Because of that, I do foresee some problems with survivability here for Cyclone as the game continues, but so far, he just wants to get items online. 2 or 3, and then he's outboxing just about everyone on the map. The issue becomes, what happens when you get crowded? What happens when 2 to 3 members are diving you and you can't just auto and trade with your life? You actually have to try and juke some abilities and get a banish online to save yourself. Well, we'll have to see how that goes, because, again, no fighting over on the left side of the map.
Honestly, the fighting on the right side of the map slowed down quite a bit. 2 deaths onto the tier. 1 kill for Panatom, 1 kill for Sot, and nothing else. Since then, Paul finally under a little bit of pressure, forced to use the ult defensively, thanks to Jake. And a pretty big deal here, knowing that the beads are going to be available, but that Jake got it with normal cooldowns. Didn't have to commit an ult, didn't have to commit anything too crazy, so Paul a little more vulnerable than he was just a few seconds ago. Maybe an opening for Panatom. But it doesn't look like they're going to be able to keep up the same pace, Charlie, and that can be devastating and deadly for the Warriors if they can't accelerate the way that they were in the first few minutes.
Beacon's coming soon, though. I do think that we might see some action over on the left side of the map, finally, because of that, right? I mean, you have the opportunity to set up the stealth grass around the beacon. Maybe the Styx Ferrymen feel a little bit more confident getting out of the tower line. There was a decent attempt at Paul's beads, but he was able to hold on to him, just use death from above instead, because Awesome Jake didn't quite get him in the silence field. But it seems like the Ferrymen are in no shape to fight, right? They are able to step up to neutral waves and hopefully their buff camps, and that is about it. Whereas the Oni Warriors at tower line, just stepping forward consistently, saying they're not afraid of just about anything. Trying to get some good damage onto the tower here, onto Aurora. Netroid has the Aussie and the Executioner, so isn't quite shredding through these tankier targets. But at the very least, not afraid to try and get some tower damage on. Head over towards Gold Fury. Panatom is nearby, and he's got ultimate. The Oni Warriors are going to start this up.
Should have plenty of good control over here. Cyclone is going to spot it out. Beacon's going to be spawning in 30 seconds. That's going to be aggression now from Jake. Locks down Aurora. Needs some damage from his team. Sino comes in. Double taunt. And it's on to Jake where the damage is falling. Up to the sky goes Panatom. Where do they want to go? And do they want to go? The answer seems to be no from the Warriors' positioning. They try for a Fury. They try to make a call. But the Ferrymen call the bluff. Not only have they stepped forward around the Fury, they might be stepping a little further. Beacon spawns in 4. And the Ferrymen have control.
I mean, I like the call from Jake to dash forward, but it didn't seem like the call was, hey, I'm going to go forward so we can fight. It seemed like he's like, hey, I'm going to zone. You guys stay on Gold Fury, which clearly didn't work out. The Styx Ferrymen were not worried about contesting an objective. They just wanted to get a free kill, and once a Nox dashes at Freya, like I said, you're going to be able to outbox just about anyone once you get some rings online. It's just you have to get multiple bodies to try and, tank those auto attacks, and it was just Jake there. There was a rotation from Sop, but it was too little too late, and of course Panatom didn't end up going up into the sky until it was just too late. So a great play to the Ferryman to step forward, get a return pick, and make sure that Gold Fury doesn't go anywhere.
And they pick up the Beacon, which in the grand scheme gives them a little bit of a boost. Second ring now, fully online, Demonic Grip, locked in. And one thing I was going to ask you about, we saw what could happen to Jake there. And now with Demonic Grip, you had mentioned already attack speed. Magi's second. How are you feeling about that for the Nox?
Seems like he's worried about things like the ultimate in from Sino. Remember, if you don't have beads, it's very difficult to try and stand at the forefront of the fight. Even with a silence from Awesome Jake can be troubling. But once again, the Oni Warriors are going in. Aurora and Cyclone want to walk forward, but it's burning so quickly.
And the burn is good. Don't even have to worry about the steal attempt because the CC that comes through from the Ferrymen, or sorry, from the Warriors against the Ferrymen, opens up the opportunity, gives them the Gold Fury, sets them up. Now Trelly, the full 3,400, 3,300, maybe rising if they can continue this amount of pressure. And this is where things can get super deadly. You're seeing a level lead almost everywhere, except for solo. The Warriors have been able to pick up the experience in their favor, maybe looking to pick up some kills. Wards give them the vision advantage. Panatom not even going to bother ulting, just walks up to the lane. Dharmic Pillars get dropped, but they want the tower, and that's exactly what they're going to get. Can they fight afterward? Dharmic Pillars are gone. Do they want to go for it? Well, the answer is no. They back away, get the tower, don't even have to commit too much.
Yep, just drop the Dharmic Pillars. Cyclone Spin, unfortunately, could not keep that tower alive, but hey, he doesn't lose his relics, doesn't lose an ultimate, and that will be safe for the time being. But I like this from the Oni Warriors, right? They have no more Fury to go for, but they still want to get aggressive, right? They still want to try and force fights whenever possible. So they head over to a tower and say, hey, we'll just group up for a tower, try and force you in. Cyclone says, all right, you know what? You guys can have it. We're just going to have to back up. No way that tower stays alive. And they're going to continue doing so. The Oni Warriors do not want this game to go to 30 minutes. They don't want a 50-minute game if they can help it. They've got double assassin for a reason, and they're going to try and use that influence throughout the map. Pyromancer could be the next target here for the Warriors, and I say the Warriors because the Styx Ferrymen haven't done anything aggressive in a while. I wouldn't even call what Cyclone Spin did aggressive. That was more getting aggressed upon and just having good damage. And here we go. Pyromancer started up. They've got good burn, and the Ferrymen are too little too late.
Pretty much the exact same setup. And maybe even same knockdown that we saw just a second ago. The only difference right now I'm noticing, Trelly, nobody picked up the Runic Bomb. And it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a race. Pagon will scoop that one for himself. So as we've talked about in the past, the Runic Bomb may be the more important aspect of getting the Pyromancer. It's worth a little bit on its own. And now we're starting to talk about the Warriors we've come to know over the last couple of months. Up 3-1, maybe it's not as kill-heavy as we've seen in some of their games, but the experience and the gold is starting to weigh heavily in their favor. 4,000 and fast approaching 5. With the way they're playing the neutral objectives, one more tier 1 would push them over the edge. Beacon's going to be charging. And Trelly, the last time it was kind of an iffy call around a Fury, then just a retreat because you don't have the numbers. Feels like the Warriors should be able to control pretty much everything across the line of scrimmage in the middle of the map.
Paul, taking some good damage. This Marty has been someone that it's not easy to pull relics off of because he's got that ultimate. You don't want to waste too much damage because if he's able to return with death from above, he can sometimes trade out a kill. And more specifically because every time he clears the wave, he gets back to full HP with that Soul Eater. So not easy to spend all your time trying to clear. But level 17 there for Pagon. This Merlin has been able to find some great farm in the mid lane. It's actually Baskin making a rotation over towards Primal Fury. Blake's in. Try and find a pull on the Panatom, but he hammers away. So a Primal Fury attempt, maybe, coming soon from the Styx Ferryman, or Baskin just wants to make sure that it doesn't go down without his presence on the left side of the map. Either way, the Styx Ferrymen are done just giving up objectives for free, right? It's been Aurora and Cyclone Spin sort of walking up towards the Fury when he gets pulled, but they aren't committing to a fight. They aren't trying to stop the pull. This time around, they show up first. Be it a bit defensive, but they're still here and well aware that it could be pulled.
Awkward timing, though. Primal Fury, well, it spawns in, but they don't have the aggression anymore to try and control this. Deep wards, well placed from the Warriors to give vision on the left-hand side. So right now, Aurora and Baskin, both known for their whereabouts. And the Beacon wasn't going to spawn for another minute and a half when that gank happens. Now it's going to be up in about 15 seconds. Sino's over on the right side of the map. Every Warrior is on left. with the furthest being Pagon hanging in mid. Stun onto Baskin, locked away for the tier. There's the CC from the Nox. The silence right now from Aurora helps limit some of that. Primal Fury started up by the Warriors. It seems to be enough now. Dharmic Pillars dropped, but not enough to get the Fury, or the steal, or the fight as of right now. The Warriors getting aggressive and burning through Aurora quickly. Are able to find that one easily. They lose the beacon, but Trelly, they're going to start pushing a tier 2 here, 18.5 in.
Yep, they've got wave. Why not? Just going for the tier 2 tower. The Ferrymen elsewhere have no way to try and defend. Paul steps forward for maybe a tier 1 in return, but Pagon's still here to try and keep it up. I mean, Sino gets a level in return, but it seems like just so much in favor of the Warriors there. And if the call was, hey, there's no way we can ever fight, let's just back up, and you let Aurora go in for the steal, I guess you're happy with getting some relics and some ultimates down, but still, Aurora and a tier 2 plus the Fury, not a very worthwhile trade there for the Styx Ferryman. And of course, Baskin did make that rotation out. I'm guessing to try and give Sino some of that free farm. Maybe he feels like if he's got kin size, he can be just a bit more impactful, which he did just go back to base and finish up. Regardless, though, the Oni Warriors are grouped as 5 towards the Fire Giant. Doesn't seem like they want the Pyromancer just yet. Finally, they go in for the pull. But no one but Aurora Baskin to try and go in for a steal attempt.
Not a lot they can do on their own. And Pyromancer easily scooped up for a second runic bomb and a second time this game for the Warriors. Now on the Fire Giant, sub 20 minutes. Trelly, they've heard our woes over yesterday's games, over the set so far, and they have picked up the pace, and they're starting this fight. Sino goes in. Warriors get the Fire Giant damage. It's trying to be there from the Ferryman, but they just do not have the fight. They try to chase deep. They've got Netroid up into the sky. They've got Panatom into the sky. They both come crashing down. Netroid's low. Aegis finding a lot of value, but Baskin just burns through it, gets the Fearless, gets the kill, and takes care of the carry. Warriors have to fall back. It's a wide open space now for the first time. Maybe some aggression from the Ferryman.
This is the first time the Ferrymen step forward. They've got the one-man advantage for some time, and Baskin still trying to find some bodies here. Looks like the teleport in from SOT means the tier 2 isn't going to go down. We finally got a decent look at how much damage Cyclone can do, but what kind is this pathing? He's out by himself.
Yeah, locked down, CC'd, uses the beads. Has some good damage. Those Sot rotates to the other side. You've got 4 around. You got to take down the Freya, but they aren't able to get it. Instead, up to the sky, the Valkyrie's discretion. Shots are good. Paul finishes off the kill and gets rid of the Robin. Now the Ferrymen starting to get aggressive, starting to find their lockdown. Metroids respawn. Panatom still playing aggressive, and it's just enough to slow the Ferryman down. But Trelly, if you are trying to play this game fast, you are trying to control it, and even more importantly, trying to get the best out of your Fire Giant buff, the Warriors falter on all 3, and the Ferrymen find themselves standing tall.
Yep, you got to be pretty good if you're the Ferryman. The second the FG goes down, you're able to get a pick on a Netroid, you're able to get the buff off of SOT, and at the very least, you haven't lost too much gold just yet. Still, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, the Oni Warriors, if I know them like I think I do, they're still going to attempt to push, even with the buff only on 3. That tier 1 in mid seems like a decent place to start. But again, stalling is the call here for the Ferryman. They just want to get late game, they want to get some itemization onto Paul, onto Cyclone Spin, and that is their sole goal, to not lose the game before they can get these ADCs just a little bit more itemization. Turns out, letting Sino just go and split push so he can get that kin size online. Pretty good look. He's got the Dawnbringer as well, so he's a bit tankier. This Erlong Shen needed that extra itemization. You know, that the kin size helps because considering his build beforehand, Manticore Spikes Exy, he really wasn't doing much. It was just CC. Now he can be a bit of a threat in a 1v1, plus he has that extra added layer of CC.
Making things difficult. Look, the longer the game goes, it's a ticking time bomb the Ferrymen have as a draft. The Warriors, despite losing that last fight, Trelly, still up 4,000 gold, get themselves an Oni Fury. Still up in terms of map pressure, map control, and map state. 2 tier 2s left standing for the Ferrymen, 1 in mid, 1 in right. And that gives the opportunity for the Warriors, now 22.5 in, to start getting aggressive, maybe utilize this last little bit of their Fire Giant buff. See where they can try and find some of that aggression. That's the hard part right now. Sot has to be careful. And that's a massive difference. I mean, last game it feels like the Raven was absolutely untouchable. Sot has not been infallible. 1-1-1. He's been able to get things going early on with his team and with a little bit of help from Panatom. Might need a little more help to try and get the level of performance we were seeing out of Baskin. Good pin. I don't know that this one's going to go as far as they want. Good double tap as well, but it's the engage actually from the Ferryman instead. They just burned Panatom in the blink of an eye, and then a great Fearless, a beautiful, beautiful pull from Baskin leads them right to the carries of the Ferryman. The damage is there, and the kills are flowing. 3 gone on the Warriors, with Jake sending them on a wild goose chase to earn number 4, but the Ferryman, in the blink of an eye, stop that engage immediately.
It just shows how much you can set up for your team. The Aurora, he drops the ultimate just to split up the engage just a bit. He doesn't think that's the go button. He thinks it's a stall button. Then Cyclone Spin finds the double whoop into immediately the Frenzy gets popped, and we see the Gatling gun. That is the ADCs of the Styx Ferrymen. Top it all off with Basket going to the backline and getting a massive double Fearless. And once again, the Styx Ferrymen have been able to stop the aggression of the Oni Warriors. Not enough to win the game. You get a tier 2 tower in return. You get a little bit of extra gold, but again, that has never been the call. Stall, get some extra items online. Cyclone Spin, able to go back and upgrade that Bumba Spear. Getting that extra penetration online is a big deal. The Freya, the more damage she gets, the more itemization she was getting online. It becomes much more difficult to try and kill her. I was worried about survivability at the beginning of the game. Turns out Cyclone just didn't get himself in any aggressive positions until now, when he can actually return that damage. There was once where I saw him a little bit worried. His positioning was out of whack. He sort of grouped up from the team and then went the opposite way. They tried to collapse on him, and then the whole team swooped in. The Ferrymen are protecting this Freya so well so far.
Sometimes control like that, man, it's exactly what you need. The damage as well. I mean, Sino and Baskin and Aurora have to give the credit over to the Ganesh because it's being played beautifully. The lockdown, Trelly, and then immediately just Paul and Cyclone shred anybody who stands in front of them. It's a scary thought if you're a Warriors fan right now. They are down still 2-0, 25 minutes into Game 3, and would need a reverse sweep to try and keep things in their favor. Trelly, gold lead still in favor of the Warriors. Kills now in favor of the Ferrymen. And as you had mentioned, levels, experience, and maybe now damage starting to shimmy towards the Ferryman. Titans have been unleashed over, and right there is another double into a double taunt as well from Sino. Baskin and Sino doing everything they can to set it up, and Panatom dies in the sky. The chase is still on. Sot, Netroid, Jake, and Pagon standing with the Titan in right. There's nothing they can do to defend this. The push is strong for the Ferryman with a kill onto the jungler, and they have opened up the conversation on the right-hand side of the map.
The Oni Warriors Titan should be dropping here shortly, which means the Ferrymen have driven it back. Do they go in for the Fire Giant while their Titan is still pushing down right, or is it a wraparound to look for a fight? Doesn't matter. Fire Giant has begun, and there's 4 Oni Warriors nearby. The Frenzy gets popped. It's going down so fast.
It's going to be the damage that's necessary, but the Warriors still step forward. Jake is here. Sot is here, but they have to play carefully. Fire Giant getting low, but it's not getting DPS. They're looking for the kill. The Robin finally shredded, and the Fire Giant to the Ferryman on all 5. So they get 50 seconds with Sot in the penalty box. Panatom just now respawns, but Trelly, before, all they got was the tier 2. Now, they've got so much more, plus a Titan to work with.
Yeah, having their Titan here is massive. The Styx Ferrymen have this extra tank to try and go in for the bird, and it's a 5v4. Panatom, remember, he died last time trying to go up into the air. His ultimate does not have on cooldown. He could go in for the Anvil of Dawn, but this Phoenix is already dropped.
Already shredded. That is going to be the respite from the Ferryman. They recognize, you know what, hey, guys, we kind of got a lot going on, a lot of gold in hand. Let's play it a little more patiently here. We got the Fire Giant, we've got time to work with, and they're going to back and spend. You had already been talking about this. I think doubly important now, but Freya getting items, and more so, Rada Tahuti into some protection on top of that. Paul getting items. Both of them are 2, 0, and 3. 3, 0, and 5 for Sino. The carries right now for the Ferrymen are not dying. Trelly, how do they approach this? There's still 2 towers over and left, so maybe something they got to focus on over there. If you're the Warriors, what kind of defense are you laying down, and how do you stop this? Because you've lost your lead, you've lost the kills. and you're on the verge of losing this set.
I mean, unfortunately, the only Warriors have put themselves in a position that no team ever wants to be in, where their tanks are not tanky enough to stand at the forefront of these engagements, right? Cyclone Spin did not get enough pressure sent his way. Paul was able to be so survivable in the early minutes of this game, and because of that, you got to a point where once he gets Berserker Shield online, I don't see a way where Cyclone Spin can really get killed unless he just dances on Pagon's abilities. And if he's that close to Pagon, why is his carries or his tanks not diving, right? I mean, Baskin has so much dive potential. Sino and Baskin have been on point. Think about all the dives that we've seen so far. It's been off the back of a great 9 turns Blessing, a great Fearless, or a great Dharmic Pillars, all forcing the rest of the Oni Warriors to disperse. Cyclone Spin has all the space in the world. Paul has all the space in the world because the tanks are doing their job.
And their worst case scenario is that space gets closed, but it's because they're getting Fearless right into just easy shots for Cyclone, easy ult for Paul. I mean, it has been just right downtown for them in terms of where they have been throwing their damage. And sometimes, oh man, it gets that easy. But you have to think about it. I mean, it's stressful, I think, in my mind. A team that has set a ridiculously long win streak. It is unheard of for it to be this length, and yet they're still pushing a little further, and they still have opportunities. And that's why it comes down to those guys right there, the Ferrymen. What are they doing? How are they approaching this fight? If you see that, are you pushing down left? There's a lot of towers to deal with. Is that the only call right now, or are you maybe airing, I guess right now, towards mid?
Seems like mid Phoenix might be on the mind, but remember, it's not Enhanced Fire Giant. It's not as easy as just walking forward.
Only one Runic Bomb as well.
Yep, they're going to go in slowly but surely. Awesome Jake has a flank opportunity. He wants to try and just pull an easy silence, and I still have my eyes on Panatom. These Anvil of Dawns have not been connecting because he's been having to run away defensively. If he's initiating the fight, maybe goes just a little bit better. Already heading back to base for now. Only a minute 40 left, but they can go in slowly for this Phoenix.
Fire minions on right. Help alleviate a little bit of the pressure. Double carry means they've knocked down half of the Phoenix already. Baskin goes in for the ult, unable to find the CC. And there's an ult from Jake to limit some of the damage. Paul gets the shots that are necessary and gets rid of the support for the Warriors. And now the Fearless is on. Not enough damage to kill off Sot just yet, but enough to find the Phoenix. Again, fire minions in right one more time. It's going to be defense for the Warriors. That has to hold on, but 4,000 gold are fast approaching in favor of the Ferryman, and Trelly still plenty of time to work with on their Fire Giant.
Yep, they got a tier 1 tower they got to burn through. They've got plenty of time, as you said. Awesome Jake going to be off the map for 28 seconds, but I imagine it's tier 2 and head back to base for Enhanced Fire Giant. A beautiful play there from Paul. I didn't think he quite had the range to confirm that kill.
That last shot.
It did seem like it was max range just to confirm that kill. And of course, no other ultimates were used. The Oni Warriors sort of just decided to back up. And one of the biggest issues with Freya compositions is trying to kill these structures. You can see this tower is not going down very quickly. But you've got Paul here. You've got Sino here as well. You've got Runic Bombs in tow now. Compositions like this, 30+ minutes, can be so scary, especially with that Frenzy and the upgraded Sunder, Aurora. I've been giving a lot of credit to the tanks. It's so easy to look at the big damage numbers and think how good that Paul and Cyclone Spin have been doing. But I think Aurora and Sino and Baskin have really been opening up the backline and just saying, hey, go ahead, step forward, Panatom, step forward, Pagon. Go ahead, try and do damage. You can't. These tanky bodies are making sure that they are just forfeiting their Phoenix because they don't want to die. They don't want to lose the game over it.
You can see, admittedly, a lot of damage numbers still in favor of the Warriors when it comes down to just the charts. But the damage that has come from Cyclone, the 9,800, the 18,000, approaching 19K from Paul, has all been effective damage. It's landed kills. It's got things done on the map, and it has made a difference. 9-4, 31 minutes in. Enhanced Fire Giant's going to be spawning up next, and right now the Ferryman fishing for a kill.
Whoa.
They force the beads onto Panatom, and then they get Jake caught out of position, an easy kill, and then a jump in from Baskin almost kills off the Thor on his own. But it is a 1-kill swing for the Ferryman, a 4v5, maybe 3v5, as Panatom gets sent back to base.
I mean, Gore, we haven't seen the Oni Warriors lose 2 consecutive games in a row ever since their consumption. Now, they are on the brink of losing a 3-0 set to the Styx Ferryman, and I saw fear in Panatom's eyes. Have you ever seen him panic beats?
I've never seen a
He was frightened that he was going to die. He knew the cooldowns were down. He knew there was no way the Baskin could close gap, but he was pre-beadsing a stun that did not come until much, much later. Panatom, without beads, makes this engage a lot easier. Baskin laughing at the damage coming his way from that double tap. This right side bird should be dropping down relatively easily. The Oni Warriors have one goal, and it's to defend their own Titan.
Phoenix, as you said, couple of autos. Not even a couple. One big shot from Paul, and that bird's gone. Mid has a minute or so to respawn. So the Ferrymen fall back a little bit. Trelly 32 minutes in. And on the cusp of maybe doing something we have not seen another team do. But
very early for this set.
It is, yeah, not only early for the set, but, and that's actually what is it has me a little shaky. We've seen the Warriors, 2 Phoenixes down around 30 minutes against the Ferrymen this day, and they dragged that game out as long as they could. So delay is in their blood. Delay is something they are good at, and delay is what I imagine they're going to be trying to do here.
Yeah, but the Oni Warriors are not sitting in base cowering. Look at this. They're setting up an ambush. Who's going to step up first? It's going to be Sino, who has Blink and Beads. They're going to walk right into the Lion's Den, but Awesome Jake only gets the Erlong, who's not taking a lot of damage.
Dharmic Pillars instead shred a little towards the Ferryman. Aurora's leading the way and is trying to find the CC. Panatom forced up into the sky, away from Sino and away from Baskin. But the Ferrymen are the ones who want this engagement. Panatom finds a double dunk and Sot jumps in for the fight. But Paul, the damage that's necessary, it's there, and it's burning through the Robin. It's burning through the Nox. The front line for the Warriors gone in an instant. Fire minions on right, a weakened Phoenix in mid, and the Ferrymen running down towards the Warriors. They have to play carefully, though. Good wall from Panatom. Slows this down, sends the Ferryman over to the left.
And they're able to get this left Phoenix because Fire Minions are already taking care of the mid bird. The Oni Warriors only have 3 bodies to try and clear waves here. They might as well break the base as slowly as possible. Remember, Netroid already used both relics. This Rama, 1 whoop from Cyclone, 1 Fearless from Basket, and his ultimate is available, and this game could be over.
3 Phoenixes down. Ferryman, 5 strong, Fire Giant enabled, and standing outside of the Titan room of an undefeated team looking to do what no one has been able to do this year. They're gonna row it down and end the Warriors 3-0 to be the Masters victors.
The Ferrymen took it in 3. Effortless. Didn't even look like they had a chance in game number 3. I really thought the comeback was going to be coming through. I liked the draft switch up from the Oni Warriors, but I mean, I'll be damned. The Freya really did survive. It got to late game effortlessly. The front line, I seriously cannot stress enough how much work Aurora and Paul and of course Baskin going to the back line. Sino was going for so much setup with this Erlong Shen, and it just made sure that the auto attacks were clean. The range damage from this Marti Cross was too much. They just have so many picks that you have to take away from the Ferryman, which is odd because one of our biggest complaints for them was Godpool before this tournament.
And that's just the glory of the tournament players. I mean, that's what they are, right? They showed up at Worlds. They show up here. They do well when things are on the line. And even 4,000 gold down, looking down the barrel of what should have felt like a Warriors win. They held true, and they win this set. It's 3-0. It's the Ferrymen, and to the victors go the spoils. I'm sure they're going to be able to relax for a little bit before we pull them in here, see how they're going to celebrate. For now, the Dusk is going to break that game down.
Styx, Ferryman, Sino, they've done it again, Miff, where we go into a phase watching this team and we go, man, there's just some little things that need to change. One player's got to change up this. For last season, it was Sino. He's got to find the God pool for himself. Sino, this phase, he's got to find something beyond these God pools. Gets the tournament time, and none of that matters anymore because Sino sets up mass for his team. This entire team of the 6 Ferrymen, strong. Probably the strongest that we have seen them in a long time for some of these players. 8 games, 8 grueling 40-minute games they had to play this weekend to find this win. I can't think of a team more deserving to take home the Grand Finals championship.
And it's the end of an era now, J-Mac. The Oni Warriors and their undefeated run from conception until now. Let's get a firm marker, 4:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6/25/2023. Thus ends the era, the reign of the Oni Warriors. Long live the SMITE Masters champions, the Styx Ferrymen, have absolutely done it. And I think you're right to say that we have always had complaints about the Styx Ferrymen, but they were small. Small things that needed to be changed. God pools here or there. Maybe comps aren't always adding up. Maybe the early game had a few hiccups in the past, but small changes are easy to make. It's the wide, sweeping, broad things that really make these teams. And the Styx Ferrymen had always had the makings of a top team, a contender, and a top seed. And here, prove it. Finally, for all the fans at home, the Ferrymen look good. In this game, I mean, it was methodical. We knew on the desk that if it had gone late, if they were able to make it to that 25-some-odd minute mark, if they were allowed to play together as a five-man core, things would just add up. Aurora, great performance on the Ganesh. He had said it himself, year of Ganesh, I believe him. A couple of these fights, absolutely dominated by those Dharmic pillars. How many three-man pushes did we see from Baskin? Too many to count. Too many to count. And so often, it was, okay, well, the only Warriors, all they got to do is get onto Cyclone Spins, jump into that back line. Robin will just hit, and there won't be enough damage from the Freya. Anyone who's saying there's not enough damage on Freya has clearly not played enough Freya, because Cyclone shredded anyone standing in front of him and just distracts so many members of the Oni Warriors. The Styx Ferrymen, they were the more whole team today, and they won as a team.
And as cliche as this is about to sound, because I'm about to pull an old one out of the book, you don't learn a whole lot when you're winning all the time. You learn when you lose. The Styx Ferrymen, their phase, I'm not going to say it was full of losing. A 5-5 to end things out. It was a rough start for them. They learned their lesson. They started building themselves back up as the phase went on. Then they kept doing some winning and kept doing a little bit more winning. And now we're here in grand finals after having to go 5 games against the Eldritch Hounds, of which they lost a couple of those ones. Oni Warriors, they've only dropped a single game coming up into this part of the tournament. Quarterfinals was a sweep for them. Nearly lost to Hex Mambo, but didn't in that first game. Were able to find a win. Only dropped one game to Jade Dragons, and that was a swift Jade Dragons win in that one, so it wasn't a whole lot of gameplay to go off of. The Styx Ferrymen just feel like they've had so much time on this meta and this style of play. They've been able to hone that one out and really solidify exactly how this meta is. When it comes to these new tournaments, these new kind of metas that emerge up immediately before, I mean, we dropped this patch Tuesday before SMITE Masters 1, and what was one of the first things we said? The fastest team to adapt and understand this meta is likely going to be the one that comes out on top. Here today, the Styx Ferrymen have proved that they're that team.
Yeah, but maybe fastest team, let's say most practiced team here, because the Styx Ferrymen have got plenty of time on this patch. Every single one of their games go the distance. What was it? 5 straight up against the Hounds, now 3-0 up against the Oni Warriors. 8 total games, all of which going the absolute distance. And this squad won out over everyone. So impressed by their run.
It was 2 weeks of play here at Masters. Week number 1 was a lot of SCC preliminaries. That gave us Hex Mambo and Niflheim Wargs moving up to the actual main bracket beyond there. Hex Mambo, they found victory early on. The Oni Warriors knocked them down. Jade Dragons found victory over the Camelot Kings. And then we had the Warriors Dragons face off. Warriors win out 3-1. And on the opposite end of the bracket, Wargs lose out to the Hounds. The Hounds take down the Ravens 2-0. Styx Ferrymen take out Leviathans 2-0. Then a best of 5 goes the full distance last night, with the Eldritch Hounds falling to the Styx Ferrymen 2-3. This morning starts out with the Jade Dragons and the Hounds. Hounds get a 3rd place victory, a massive win for the rookie team. And the Styx Ferrymen today 3-0. The Oni Warriors are your Season 10 SMITE Summer Masters champion. And what a win to go out on. Again, this Oni Warriors team, over the course of the phase, dropped maybe a single game here and there in their sets, but we're winning every single one out. Taking 2 games off this team just felt completely unheard of. And the Styx Ferrymen did it to game 2, and we're sitting here watching game 3 going, is this about to be a sweep? Is this about to be a clean win for the Styx Ferrymen? The answer to that question was yes. A well-earned win for the Styx Ferrymen, and we've got every single one of their players standing by for our post-game interview with Gore.
That's right. I've got the entirety of the Styx Ferrymen standing here. It was hard to fit into the camera shot with everybody, but we managed to make it work. And I guess just up front, we got Sino in line. I'm going to go through everybody, and you get the first question, the easy one. How's it feel to win?
I mean, obviously it feels good. You know, it's been a rough and down, up and down split, but obviously it feels good to win.
And you guys managed to do it. Cyclone, I'm going to slide between you two. You played Marty almost every game, it seems like. What caused the switch to Freya?
I came into the set saying, like, if we had Marty and we give it to Paul, I was just going to play Freya. Because when we scrimmed the Warriors all week, I never played it once. But I played it against a different team, so...
So it just happened to work out really well that you could play it. both, and then you got a lot of practice on it yesterday too, right? So it ended up helping out. Paul, I guess that brings us to you. Yep. You get banned out, it feels like, in every single game, but it adds up. How do you deal with that? And at this point, does it like weigh on you? Do you even care anymore?
No, I mean, when they triple ban, it's happened before in the past. I mean, I still just have a bunch of like I can play like anything, and so Marty, you go in the bush and then you and they die, so we're good.
There was one you got like the tail end. I think it was towards a base siege. You like just barely clipped Jake for a kill.
Oh yeah.
Looks good. It's like you've been playing it the whole time, despite the fact that I guess there's been an agreement. I guess that's where the scrims come in handy, right? Yeah. Baskin, you, man, I have to give credit because I think the front line, we had a lot of conversation between me and Trelly about this, really start to pull things back. And in that last game, you're like 4,000 gold down. There's a point where you guys are at your tier 2 on a defense. And there was a banish into a fearless. Like, what is that moment like in comms and for the team?
It was very. I can't remember the comms too much, but it was. I think all the games were pretty slow until like one big team fight around like 25 minutes. So it was definitely really hype. Cyclone got a double banish, I think. We Ganesh ulted it, and then they used their beads plus their escapes. So at that point, my job's pretty easy. So I just ulted them, and yeah, it was pretty hype.
And then you guys suddenly make the comeback, right? You get exactly what you need. We'll move over to the coach and ask the exact same question I asked earlier, especially for you. Coming into this, you're coaching a bunch of experienced guys here, and it's been a grueling season, right? It's been back and forth. Sometimes you get this guy playing the op-watch support, and then sometimes you come in and you're doing exactly what you did today. Yeah. What has it been like for this first half year of support?
Yeah, I mean, it's been up and down, thick and thin, but, just another day at the office.
Sometimes it's that easy. Another day at the office. Aurora, I'm going to slide over to this side. I asked you before, and you get to answer the same question twice. You've now actually won. How are you going to celebrate?
I'm just excited to go home. That's the main thing. I'm not even kidding. Like I'm ready to go home and visit my family, and so I'm really excited about that. And then I just want to address one thing. Everybody always says we're like a tournament team, and we turn up during the tournament, and we show up. We don't do it on purpose. Yeah. We are actually losing to these teams. We are trying our hardest during the regular phase, and we're doing everything we can to win. But every loss, we learn something, and we get better. And that's what I've done every single year, and I'm going to continue doing it. So it's not like we just show up and turn up, but we actually get better as a team. And you got to give credit to everybody on the team to work towards something, because it's not easy when you lose. So I'm really happy for everybody.
Yeah, as you've said in the past, you learn from your losses, and you guys have shown that, right? In perfect formation, everyone, you're SMITE Masters champions here in the summer of 2023. Congratulations to the Ferrymen. We'll go back to the desk.
That's right. A big congratulations to the Styx Ferrymen one more time for their championship. A hard-fought win for this team. Remember, starting out 5-5 in the regular season, then make their way through the playoffs, and then here through the Masters tournament to find their victory. So then the next question, Mifflin, is, well, what's next? Phase 1 is done. There's no more SPL to be had, at least for now, and nothing going on, at least during the summer, primarily for actual full SPL stuff, but we do have a lot of amazing events happening during it. If you go over to our Twitter, SMITE Pro, we just put out a tweet that has a couple of blog posts. Make sure you check out both of them, because they'll go over all of the details of what's going to be happening over the course of the summer. We're going to have some EU Gauntlets, NA Gauntlet for the SCC teams. We're going to have a Roll Stars and All Stars kind of match up there. All kinds of great things happening then, and then Phase 2 of SPL will all kick off in September. So make sure you go to SMITE Pro, check out the two blogs, and check out the Road to Worlds and our Summer Solstice, I believe is the official name that we have coined for all of our events in the summer. But that's it for us here on the SMITE Summer Masters and SPL of Phase 1. On behalf of myself, Mifflin, Casters, and everyone in production behind the scenes, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.